WCW Monday Nitro number 177, February 1st, 1999.
Hey, listen, before we go any further, Aaron, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
31.
31 years old. When did you start watching wrestling?
I probably started watching when I was a kid, probably about 5 or 6.
Oh.
So I've been watching off and on for the last 25 years.
So did you watch these Raw and Nitro shows when they originally aired in some form?
Only the Raws. I stopped watching Nitro probably about 95, 96-ish.
Oh, really?
So
Wow. You
as
gave
soon
it
as it was on.
Yeah, you gave it a year during its best period.
Hey, come on now. I went with the good stuff.
Well, that's true. I think that's true. We'll determine that as we review Raw here. I'm never really sure.
Is there good stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there was.
So, great
It was good
irritation.
back then.
Well, right back then it was very popular. It's questionable today why it was, but it certainly was, so.
Holy shit.
All right, Vinny, Nitro.
So, I always have tech problems with the Nitro. It's always buffering on me. New one this week. I go to click play, and it's just a blank screen. I try this 3 or 4 times. I try open a new window. It's just a blank screen. But if I click add episode to watch list and then go to my watch list, then I can watch it. That pissed me off. Kurt Hennig and Barry Windham arrived at the building. They are in the tag team tournament. And they want to win the tournament and get those tag team belts. Why? Because then they get a match with Hall and Nash. Because the tag team championships are being brought back only because the winner gets a shot at Hall and Nash. The belts themselves are meaningless.
Yep, the birth of the West Texas Rednecks, basically, right here.
More or less.
Yeah.
They showed a video from earlier the day.
This was the fucking funniest video. Was this not? Let me just jump forward a little bit. The first 10 minutes of the show, has there ever been a show where in 10 minutes they had more stupid videos? Ever?
That's not really fair.
I think it's more like 45 minutes.
So many stupid fucking videos in the first 10 minutes of the show, starting with this one.
So the Nitro girls are rehearsing when Scott Steiner comes out to fuck them. And as Kimberly is trying to get away, she trips over one of the other Nitro girls who's down on her hands and knees behind her.
Vinny, you're killing it already. Steiner comes out, okay? He grabs Kimberly by the arm. And he basically says, I'm here for you.
Right.
I'm here for you.
Exactly.
Let's go fuck. Okay? I'm doing this as a favor.
Right.
She says no. She yanks her arm away from him for some fucking reason, which I should have gone back to figure out why.
Right.
There's a Nitro girl on her knees behind Kimberly.
I have so
Why?
many thoughts running through my head right now.
She trips over this girl, a legit schoolboy,
Yeah.
and falls and goes, ugh, and sells it like she's dead.
She's out.
Right?
She sells it like a gunshot. Steiner
Unconscious.
Yeah, she's out.
Steiner says, I never touched her, and he flees. And the other Nitro girls and a tech guy or something, they all kneel over Kimberly while still managing to show zero concern at all whatsoever. So that's what happened.
This was hilariously bad. Like, astonishingly bad.
Well, speaking of astonishingly bad, Mean Gene calls out K-Dog and Rey Mysterio Jr. One, Rey is still wearing the LWO shirt. It's been 3 weeks.
Yeah.
The Angle was killed, except Rey, who never wanted to be part of the group, won't let it die.
And he still hasn't washed it because it's still the same size.
Dude,
So-
you can watch that 100 times. It's going to be big on Ray.
So I think it's actually getting smaller.
I know that as a small man.
So Ray talks about growing up watching Kevin and Lex. And he showed up in WCW for the first time and, quote, they showed that love to me. They guided me through. They gave me respect. He lawn darted you into the side of a building.
That's literally the last time we saw them together.
Yes.
So what the fuck is he talking
Like, in
about?
all seriousness, Ray, at this period here in February of 99, he's being booked worse by WCW than he was as world champion in WWE.
Hey, listen.
At least he wasn't an idiot there. He just got beat up a lot. So he said he beat Lex. Conan said, in wrestling, you don't need to be 6'5" and 300 pounds anymore. He would make those strawberries bow down. And they challenged Nash and Luger to a tag match with Ray's mask against Nash's hair or Luger's hair or Elizabeth's hair. And that was it. And they left.
So, to recap, these two dumb shit baby faces have offered to put Rey Mysterio's mask on the line in a match against Kevin Nash and Lex Luger. They have offered to do this in a cage. They have offered to put their careers on the line. They've offered to put Ray's mask on the line. The baby faces have offered this.
Yeah.
Okay. Aaron, what do you make of all of this?
Yeah, I really couldn't remember any of this stuff from watching this. And I know where this is going, and the stuff about the booking of Rey Mysterio, I know it just gets a whole lot worse.
Oh.
But I think something that K-Dog or Conan or whatever they call him now, he said something along the lines of, attacking Rey Mysterio is like robbing a bank, but before you leave, you shoot the teller, but he also happens to be in a wheelchair.
Yes.
I don't know if that was like burying him or what's going on now. If he's just trying to say that he's really short or weak, I don't get that. I don't know what he was talking about.
It was a weird comparison. He goes, it's cool to rob a bank, and it's cool to shoot the teller, unless he's in a wheelchair. Then you're a coward.
I won't lie.
That's what Conan said.
I caught maybe 20% of what Conan was talking about, so I
What Conan is saying is that Ray is small, therefore he's handicapped.
He's being bullied, even
Sure.
though he's a wrestler and
defend
challenging
himself.
for this. Yeah. Oh, here's another skit. Oh, here we go.
I like these ones though.
Vince is at the rental place at the airport.
Well, the whole B teamers.
All of the NWO B team geeks. So he comes back and he explains to them, there's no rental cars.
Every rental car,
There's not one rental car.
every agency at the airport in Minneapolis is gone.
Not only that, but there's no reservations either.
No.
Brian Adams, who has never done one single good thing on the show, finally does when he demands to know, where are the Tauruses?
Where's our Tauruses at?
Where are the Tauruses?
Which is funny
Why
because
my Taurus?
they should really have Brian Adams call and make the reservation. Hi, this is Brian Adams. Oh, the guy from Canada that sings.
I don't think it's that easy, Craig.
That was
I
a
bet it
timely
is.
joke in 1999.
So Stevie goes to handle the situation.
I'm going to run to you.
He comes back.
Don't cut me like a knife.
He says, my talk with Hulk Hogan was a success. My buddy's got us hooked up. And he's got a limo. He is delivered.
Yes.
And so they go to get in the limo, but they will not let Vince ride with them.
There's not enough room. Somebody's got to go. And they all kick Vince out.
There's not enough room in a limousine for Vince.
No.
Even let him ride shotgun.
He was going to ride shotgun. One of them said, this isn't driving Miss Daisy. Get out. So that limo leaves. Vince calls Nash.
This is incredible.
Yes.
Vince calls Nash and says, I need a ride. Nash says, I'll be right there. 3 seconds later.
Literally, he's still on the phone.
Yes.
Oh, you'll be right here? Shh, there's the limo.
There he is.
Yes.
They totally don't care. It's complete bullshit.
It's almost like the limo was just out of the shot.
Yeah.
And then it rolled in
Well,
the shot.
it
it's
was.
pulled in.
Physically, it would have to be.
And they say, Vince, get in. And they invite Vince in, and they pull away. Nitro Girls, sans Kimberly danced.
She's unconscious.
Yep.
Still.
Ric Flair had Eric Bischoff in a dunk tank in the parking lot outside at night in Minneapolis in January.
Well, he hadn't got him in there yet. He's dragging him out of the building. And maybe I misheard this, but Rick says, I'm in charge now for 57 more days. And Eric says, 58.
I don't know. Don't look at me for an answer. I
Why
don't
would
know.
Eric say, it's actually longer, Rick?
Mr. President?
You have control over me for an extra day. Well, don't get this wrong. So yeah, Flair wants him in a dunk tank outside the Target Center in 28-degree weather in Minneapolis in January. Mm-hmm. And Eric says, I don't want to do it. And Flair says, I didn't want to wrestle Kurt Hennig a few months ago, but I did it anyway. Get your ass in this dunk tank.
Pretty sure he volunteered for that, by the way.
And Bischoff says, fine, I will do it, but I will get my revenge later. Mm-hmm. And by the way, where's your son?
Yes. Kurt Hennig and Barry Windham versus Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko in a tag team tournament match.
I don't think it was.
What?
I thought it was.
I thought it was too.
Me too.
But then the Observer said the planned tournament final was Benoit and Malenko versus...
Well,
Oh, Vinny's going to explain this.
as the announcer said this last week, and I forgot to mention it, For some reason, this is now a double elimination tournament.
I see.
Because
Why?
apparently just to guarantee that WCW fucks it up. This company can never get anything right, especially tournaments. So make it a double elimination to make it more complicated to ensure a fuck up.
Huh.
Now, Barry Windham, in preparation for this match, he got out of the limo, went to the locker room, took off his shirt, taped his wrists, and put his jean jacket back on and walked to the ring.
Not just that, he put on a knee brace and then
Yes.
pulled his jeans on over the knee brace.
And he kept his street shoes on. He was wearing heels on his boots.
Can we talk about how
So
it was
many
actually like
questions
a
about
really
this.
good match?
Of course it was.
I mean, that's what I
That was
got out of
good.
this.
Shouldn't surprise anyone.
This match was awesome.
So,
Benoit Malenko versus Hennig and Wyndham.
of course it's awesome.
No, Vinny. Like, Wyndham has been hit and miss. Hennig is hit and miss.
Well, it is 99.
Benoit and Malenko are great. But, like, everybody was great in this match. And they had a great tag team match.
Sure.
did,
I couldn't
they did.
believe my eyes.
It broke down into a four-way. Wyndham hit a superplex on Malenko and made a cover, but they were not the legal men. So Benoit has the diving headbutt on Wyndham to break it up, even though they're not the legal man. There's a mistake on his part, as Hennig hits Benoit with a fisherman suplex for the win. A very fun tag match.
It was awesome. 2 thumbs up. 8 on the granny scale.
Very good.
J.J. Dillon took 5 throws to get Eric Bischoff into the dunk tank, and this made La Parka happy.
Actually, he missed 4 times, and then Eric just fell in the water anyway. Because
This-
it was a gimmick dunk tank.
If I'm being honest, yeah, this dunk tank was very poorly operated. There's sometimes they'd hit the target and nothing would happen. Sometimes you just fall in without a ball even being thrown.
Because it was fake.
But not faked badly, is my point.
Well, yeah.
It could have been faked a lot better.
Yes, easily. The Wolfpack arrived at the building. The B-teamers were already there since they left at the same time. Nash was very stunned to see the B-teamers had their own limo. So Stevie Ray stooges off Vince, and then Vince gets out of the Wolfpack's limo. They had the least intense face-off you ever saw, and Scott Norton made peace when it was already pretty peaceful. They go to the break, and they come back. The B-teamers are heading into their locker room, and Stevie Ray's bitching, "We're not going to have any food. We're not going to have any drinks." And they turn the corner. There's women there.
Yeah. And you know what the women say? And I quote, "Hi, black and white guys."
Brazzers.
And then somebody, and I don't know who, mentions Jungle Fever right as they cut away.
I did hear that. Yeah.
1999.
I'm trying to figure out if that's more offensive than what we heard on Raw.
Not even close.
No.
Okay.
Almost.
No.
Anyway. Mean Gene brings
So
Flair.
before you go any further, Vinny, let's just recap. The NWO B team walks into a locker room, and there's a bunch of strippers.
Well, we don't know that.
That's
Well, they
fair.
had no clothes on, so I
evening
mean,
gowns
pretty
still?
good. No.
Flimsy?
One of them was in lingerie.
All right.
Okay.
One.
They say hi, black and white guys.
Sure.
There's a Jungle Fever comment, and we
Right.
cut away. Okay.
That's what happened.
All right.
Okay.
Just want to make sure that we got that.
Mean Gene brings Flair out for a promo. At this point, Flair's probably very depressed about not being in the B team.
I think he was drunk,
Oh, come on now.
dude. Flair has great delivery, but like he was all over the place in this promo.
I just remember when he called Vince Virgil. He listed a list of great wrestlers and said, "I will never look like you, Hogan, but I can tie you in a knot. I will do or die at the pay-per-view."
I loved when he mentioned Hulk Hogan's physique and he mentioned hot stuff. Anybody remember hot stuff?
Eddie Gilbert.
No.
No. It was a thing that they
Donna
had.
Summer?
This was in the 90s because Buddy had it all the time. It was this stuff that you sprayed on your body. And it would like
Oh,
open up the
yeah.
capillaries,
Yes.
and so your skin turned a little bit red, and
Yes.
so you look tanner.
Yes.
Hot stuff. What a blast from the past that was.
So Flair announces Bret Hart versus Chris Benoit for the U.S. title at Super Brawl. At this point in Disco Inferno, when Scott Hall interrupt, Hall says, "I should be the top contender for that U.S. title." Benoit comes out to debate the point. He threatened to, quote, "introduce my foot to your brown eye."
That's what he said.
If you ever
That's
wonder,
what Chris Benoit said in this promo.
back in the day, we all wondered why Chris Benoit was not a main eventer. That's why. That one line kept him out of the main event for years. A brawl broke out, the Horsemen won, and Flair booked Benoit versus Hall for tonight.
Hey, Aaron, are you in San Jose?
Yeah.
You ever run into Big Dave around town?
Boy, I wish so, but I think he stays pretty secluded.
Well, he does stay pretty secluded, but like he's never been to your grocery store?
No, I don't think they're in the same area.
Oh man.
There's more than one grocery store in San Jose.
It's crazy.
How can that be?
It's out of control. Man.
No.
I was just wondering, you had the 408 number, and so does Dave, so small world. Maybe guys.
Oh, I know.
Maybe they met at Small World.
Do you think, Brian, if you knew Dave Meltzer, you need to make a donation to Whale Scout to get on the show?
Maybe. I don't know. He's doing it because of the good of his heart.
He just go to Dave's house.
He's doing it out of the good of his heart.
Van Hammer versus Kenny Chaos.
Oh, boy.
The announcers
Oh,
acknowledged...
can I mention, by the way, that this aired head-to-head with the start of Raw?
Van Hammer versus Kenny Chaos?
Yeah. This was the head-to-head
Awesome.
segment. The first one of the evening.
How strange.
Chaos versus fucking Van Hammer.
Yeah. The announcers acknowledged the death of Giant Baba. That's about all he had done for the sport.
Larry actually put Giant Baba over,
Yes.
to which Mike today said, quote, legendary in the Orient.
Yes.
Mike Tenay.
So, earlier, Scott Dickinson, the suspended ref, had been shown in the crowd. As soon as this match begins, they cut to Dickinson. He gets up and walks out.
Yeah,
He's not
fled.
going to stick around
No.
for Chaos and Hammer.
Let's see, I can throw balls at Bischoff or I can watch this fucking match.
So, doing this match, out strolls the Sandman. He
Well,
has-
out scrolls
A man.
a guy who they haven't come up with a name yet
No,
before.
no.
Even though he's on fucking national television.
Right.
Yep.
So a fucking entire match takes place, and they have nothing to call this guy.
This man, this guy,
This
fella.
man, this guy.
When he walked out, he's got like jeans and a sweatshirt on. He's carrying his kendo stick, and he has fake barbed wire wrapped around him.
Yeah.
He
Why?
just strolls on down the aisle.
He's extreme, Brian.
And
fucking
Tony,
stupid.
Tony stops, and he says, "I have no idea who that man is. I guarantee you that was a shoot." He literally had no idea someone was going to come out, and when this guy came out, Tony had no idea who he was.
Who is that fan wrapped in barbed wire?
I was reading The Observer for this show, and Dave wrote that Sandman came out with a new physique.
That's true.
I was like, what was his old physique?
Fatter?
He got a little bigger.
Oh, is that what it was?
Oh, yeah.
He looked horrible.
Yes,
I guess I'm used to like Sandman in 2017.
You need to go back
It
and
was
watch 1997 Sandman.
really
for
lean.
many reasons.
Well, I remember him. I just
He did lose his gut, but
Yes.
he gained a lot of.
wow.
Well, his head's bigger. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. So he comes out here. Hammer wins the match with an Alabama slam, and Sandman gets to the ring and just whacks everybody with a stick. And he goes to cut a promo.
Yeah, it gets a promo right. He challenges Bam Bam
That's
Bagalow.
what he said. He said, "I'm the first man who did a no ropes barbed wire match." Bullshit.
Not true.
"I'm the first man to use a barbed wire baseball bat. The first guy to do a barbed wire dive off a cage through a table." What a strange thing to boast about.
That's history.
He called out Bam Bam Bagalow, and they go to break. And he did correct himself, by the way. So it's not that he got the name wrong. I mean, he did work with him for years in the ECW, I guess. Anyway, we got Bam Bam Bigelow versus this guy.
In his debut,
Yeah.
his first ever match
He doesn't even have a name.
in World Championship Wrestling.
By the way, they had a long time to come up with a name,
Months.
and then he was Hack.
Well, that was his actual legit nickname.
Hack.
Yeah.
Well, let's also keep in mind
I didn't give it to him.
he's been on the show now for at least a month. He was Raven's friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jim.
That's
Jim,
right.
that's right. Raven's friend Jim.
I guess they didn't want
Why
to say,
did-
hey, it's Jim.
Why didn't they, well, it could have been
Why's
Raven's
he got
friend
barbed
Jim.
wire around
Raven's
him?
friend Jim, hailing from wherever, New Jersey.
Sure.
So, 100% of his offense was hitting Bam Bam with a stick. Bam Bam
cut
comes
to the
back,
chase.
wraps a chair around his head.
Bam Bam beat his ass and pinned him in the middle of the ring.
That's what happened.
In his fucking debut.
Yep. Greetings to Asbury Park was the.
He used his own barbed wire against him, hit a headbutt, and the pile driver onto a chair and pinned him.
Aaron, did you ever watch ECW?
Oh, I would watch a tiny bit in 99-ish, but it just wasn't my thing.
Not your thing.
No.
So I presume this match here was also not your thing?
It was boring. You know, it's just you watch it, and you watch it from 2018 to back then. It's like, okay, another chair shot to the head. Well, that's nice. Oh, what's he going to do? He's going to throw him into the barbed wire, and he just bounces off of it. You know,
That did happen.
Fake.
It was very fake barbed wire. Which I shouldn't complain. You know what I mean?
No.
Complain, but it's like, come on. He comes out there and there's, he's so dangerous. He looks like he's wearing a chain fence or something like that. I mean, come on.
Yeah, this was a fail.
Give him a name.
Back at the dunk tank, you could see Bischoff's breath at this point. He actually was falling in water in freezing weather.
Yeah.
A cameraman threw like 2,000 baseballs. Some hit the target. They went to commercial. Bischoff never fell in. The shittiest damn dunk tank.
And then they come back and Scott Dickinson dunks him.
Later, yeah.
Yeah.
Luger Liz video package. This was not live. It was pre-taped, pre-produced, presumably pre-mixed. Liz was so quiet I had to crank up the volume to hear anything she said. There's a reason she didn't talk for like 10 years.
Right.
So...
You think they were dating at this time?
I'm thinking it was around this time, but
Thinking so as well.
I don't remember exactly when it was.
So, she said it was great to be a part of an elite group like the NWO. And Lex runs down all of Goldberg's assets, but says he's no total package, and laying Goldberg out had been the greatest moment of his career. Let's see, Scott Dickinson hit the dunk tank. The cameraman missed Eric Bischoff going into the drink. Dallas Page arrived. Of course, his wife had been taken out earlier that afternoon. Talks to Kidman, gets the scoop, storms into the NWO locker room, slams the door behind him. But
What a stooge. Kidman.
Yeah.
It was on videotape.
Disgusting.
I think you would have saw it.
All I know is Page...
If you watch either of these shows, nobody watches videotape.
Page storms into the NWO locker room and slams the door behind him, but thankfully there's a camera in there too. He demands to know where Steiner is. They all just laugh at him. He warns them to pray. Kimberly is fine, and he leaves.
Was this the black and white locker room?
No, it was a Wolfpack.
Okay.
Nash and Luger were in there.
Facts.
He leaves. Then there's a back door, which I guess is the showers. And Steiner steps in and says, "Hey, what's going on, guys?" And he's sure to clarify he never touched Kimberly. She slipped on her own.
Actually, he did touch her. He grabbed her elbow.
I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
Well, he said he never touched her.
He lied.
Heel.
Liar. He had a girl in the showers. Her arm came out, and Steiner held up, I guess, a pair of boots.
I thought it was leather pants.
Yeah, it was
Pants,
the
I see.
other hot pants they were wearing in the...
I see.
Yeah.
He implied this was Kimberly with him in the showers, then he went backstage to fuck her.
So he was in the shower in his clothes.
In his gear. Yeah.
That's weird.
and she was...
You don't say.
And Kimberly was unconscious?
Well, no, she was standing there, obviously.
I see.
Somebody was.
With her arms.
Okay.
Maybe he detached her arm and just kind of, flopped it around, showing off.
No,
to
I
his
don't know,
buddies.
actually.
I don't know what the
No,
fuck's
that's
going on.
not-
This is fucking stupid.
So they go in the shower. Nash tells Vince, "You go tell Paige Steiner will accept any match he wants.
This was so great.
And after you tell him this, I want you to slap him right in the face." So Vince says, "You got it." And he goes outside, and he closes the door, and he says, "Hey, Disco." And he passes the buck.
They literally work this like they're going over a match.
Yeah.
Vince is like, "Go out there, and I want you to tell Steiner that DDP accepts his challenge, and then slap him." And Disco's like, "Slap him?" And Vincent says, "Slap him, and then we'll be right out there." Disco says, "So I'll slap him, and then you guys will hit the ring."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Paige goes to the ring. He calls out Steiner. Disco comes out, tells him to quit crying. "You can get a match with Steiner at Super Brawl." And he slapped him, and he turned around expecting backup. He saw only an empty aisle. And he turned around and Paige did a diamond cutter and left.
I loved it.
This is all one segment, by the way. There's no like commercial breaks in or anything in here.
No.
So Vince goes back to the NWO. I think he got credit for a job well done.
Yes.
Yeah,
he
they
did.
congratulated him for being
Yeah,
smart.
everyone said he's getting smart.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Paige got into his car and left.
Oh, by the way, we forgot to mention in the Ric Flair interview, he called him Virgil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vinny made note of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Just remembered that.
Where was DDP going?
yeah, where's
hospital.
Kimberly? Oh, is that it?
Went to the
that-
hospital, I guess.
Okay.
Is that where she was?
She was knocked out earlier that afternoon.
I thought she was in the shower with Steiner. You telling me that was
I
a
think,
work?
I think there was another Nitro girl.
To be fair, there may be more than one Kimberly. Common name. In
Hadn't
his
thought of
Nitro
that.
debut, Lash LaRue versus Kidman.
Lash LaRue. What, Vinny? What's wrong with Lash LaRue?
This match,
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
He was not very good, Brian.
What are you talking about?
he had Canyon syndrome, where everything he does is going to be a big move or a finish. And the rare occasions when he has to do like a punch or a chin lock, it's awful.
Listen,
His high spots were good. His transitions sucked.
There were
Lash,
none.
Lash LaRue,
For himself a couple times.
Lash LaRue was a power plant guy. And by that standard, he was pretty good. And he'd done some B shows, and this was his graduation up to Nitro. And I guess they liked him enough in this match with Kidman that he got a deal. He got a match. He got a contract out of this match.
Well, good for
Vinny.
him.
He was all right.
He's out there with his bowl cut. He does 18 finishers, then a chin lock. Does this horrendous punch combo and lays coming out, and the whole thing. This was like watching a guy play a video game in a wrestling, playing a wrestling video game. He does all his cool moves, and then his energy bar is out, and he's got to do just the boring stuff, and the boring stuff sucks. So
a lot of wrestling nowadays.
Yes, does a lot of rest holds. The crowd gets bored, starts chanting that Green Bay sucks. Goes on and on. I remember this somehow. Last Through's finish is the fireman's carry Michinoku driver. Dana Brooke doesn't now. This is his first match on Nitro, and he just had to get his shit in. And he hits this move. He hits his finish, and the first time we see it, Kidman kicks out.
Yep.
He killed his own finish because he had to get it in.
What, did they call it his finish? How'd you know it was his finish?
Because I remember Last Through from 20 years ago.
Well, it wasn't his finish yet.
I guess not. Clearly.
Well, to be fair, there was a top rope powerbomb that Kidman delivered to Lash LaRue, and his head bounced off the mat very, very hard.
Oh,
Yeah.
Hope he wasn't hurt. So Kidman, as always, can't get powerbombed, hits a facebuster, hits a shooting star press, and wins. A very bad match, I wrote.
Oh.
I agree with Vinny.
What do you think, Aaron?
It was okay, but I would just call it a moves match. That's all it was. It was just move, move, move. Transition, move, trip, fall over yourself, pick him up, hit another move, pin.
That's perfect,
it's
actually.
going a little too fast.
That was a way better review than yours, Vinny. move, trip and fall down over yourself, move.
Actually, that's something one of my matches.
Actually, it does. Was he wearing velour?
I had a better haircut.
That's true.
They found Heenan. Bobby Heenan was supposed to take over on commentary, but had not been seen. And it turns out he was at the dunk tank. It's cold. It's very cold by this point. You can see everyone's breath. Heenan declares, Eric Bischoff, I have no beef with you. I'm going to try and make peace. I'm going to hand you these baseballs so that no one can dunk you anymore. And he walks up to him, but then he trips, and he falls.
Slips on the ice.
Slips on the ice, he says, and he falls into the target and hits it, and Bischoff goes into the drink.
It was awesome.
Yeah, Heenan good at comedy, it turns out.
Yeah.
Physical comedy. I was afraid he was actually going to slip on the ice and kill himself, but he didn't.
Unfortunately, the little platform that Bischoff was on did not cooperate, and it went off like 3 seconds after the trip.
I'd given up on the dunk tank by this point.
Dude, there was no platform. He just sat on it and slid off every now and then. It was fake. It was a worked dunk tank.
There was a platform, was there not?
Yeah, did he jumped off of?
It bent.
No.
Yes, it did.
Okay, I'm not going to go back and argue this.
I'll put it up on that TV right now. Who is Hulk Hogan's Harley Davidson idiot friend? I keep forgetting.
I believe it's Chuck Zito.
That's
Yes.
right.
Chuck.
Hulk Hogan and a Sly Stallone lookalike are in a limousine in the sun here in the middle of this nighttime
Just
show.
mumbling to each other.
Yes.
Hey,
They did a second segment and converted. I think they called him Chuck. I
it was
vaguely remember
Chuck
his name.
Zito. That's right.
Chuck Zito.
They're fucking sitting there.
They're just chatting.
Yeah.
That's
They're-
a gas station, I think.
They run down David Flair and appear to be stalking him, but we never actually saw David, so we had to take them at their word for it.
Yeah, they were either at a gas station or they were definitely going to a gas station. They may have
were
been
there.
going. They may have been going to a number of gas stations.
Well, they were watching him pump his gas and commenting the gas hose is thicker than his arms.
Yes.
Okay, so stop right there. Did they not find him at a gas station at the end of the show?
No, they found him at a gym.
Oh, there was it a gym? Okay.
He was going to the gym.
Okay, so they're
walking-
following him.
Yes.
All right.
Tailing him.
Tailing him, yeah.
Me and Gene interviewed Booker T backstage.
So you tell me David Flair didn't notice a fucking limo had been following him for 2 fucking hours as he drove around town?
That's right.
It's Charlotte. I assume everyone has limos.
Paparazzi, you know.
Yes.
It's a mode of transportation for Charlotte, right?
So me and Gene,
Charlotte?
Yeah, that's where Flair's from.
Hey, all I know about Charlotte is that Dusty's there and the Horsemen are there.
Right.
So there must be limos everywhere.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Okay. You idiot.
Me and Gene, he goes to interview Booker T backstage, and he asks a question, and Booker says, "Well, Gene," and then me and Gene interrupts and asks a different question.
Yeah.
It's happened like 4 times. Mm-hmm. I'm stunned Booker didn't punch him.
Let's talk about the most important part of this interview, okay? I'm glad I got 4 of us here, 2 over there.
Sure.
Okay.
That's 5, by the way.
So Gene is trying. There's 6 here. Someone's on the phone. Aaron, Craig.
Sure, but there's 5 here.
Yes.
That's
so
6.
He's there.
Booker T says,
Yes.
and I quote, he goes, Gene, where I'm from, When you get caught flipping, you get dank.
That's right.
You dig?
I'm so glad you did that.
Who the fuck can explain this to me? I checked the Urban Dictionary. I Googled it in a number of different ways.
I'm sure he didn't say ganked at the end.
He may have.
It might have been gay.
Now, when he said, the first thing he said was,
What was that, Aaron?
Well, hey, I thought I heard gank, and I thought that would be like more would flood him because if he's talking about that prison culture or whatever.
Gank.
Ganked,
yeah.
Okay.
Now,
killed.
when you said caught flippin',
Yes.
I thought he said when you get called flippant.
No, when you get caught flipping.
I didn't remember when
You're
this
so
happened.
white. Okay, ganked. Thank God. Okay, ganked. All right? A process in which a group of characters gang up on one or more players that do not have a chance to defend themselves. This is video games.
Sure, but
Or ganking to kill, steal, beat, grab, and yank.
Yikes.
why did your eyes go like that?
Well, I mean, kill, steal, and beat seems pretty bad, but then you grab and yank them?
That's bad.
Not in that order.
No, that's the order.
Oh.
Okay, so let me translate here.
Brian starts with that.
Okay? So what Booker was trying to say is, Gene, where I am from, when you get caught flipping, you get kill, steal, beat, grab, and yank.
Wow.
All right, I got it.
Anyway.
What does he mean flipping? I got to look that up now?
Oh, yeah, it's switching teams, I guess.
No.
No?
Huh?
It's flipping. You know, going from one to the
Urban
other.
Dictionary. I'm going to find flipping.
I know what tripping is.
A less severe version of the word fucking.
I see.
You get caught fucking, huh?
So you get grabbed and yanked.
When you
you're-
get caught fucking, you're going to get killed and yanked.
Right, no.
Yes, that's exactly. That was a translation of Booker T's promo right there.
Huh.
Don't question this, Craig.
I,
All right, are we done with this interview?
far be it
Booker
from
said
me.
he had a match. He talks about Bret Hart the whole time, but he's got a match with Disco Inferno at Super Brawl.
Yeah.
Scott Steiner and Buff Bagwell come out for a promo, and Scott immediately uses the word mesmerized.
That's right.
He was mesmerized.
Said the last time he had wrestled Paige, the stipulation had been that if he won, he'd get to show Kimberly what it was like to be with a real man. Mm-hmm. I left the word with there, and it says what it was like to be a real man. I don't think that's right. He insisted Kimberly was flirting with him backstage. Paige needed to step aside and let nature take its course. That made me laugh. This led to a very odd but very fun match.
Yes.
Oh, it was great.
Scott Steiner versus Chris Jericho.
Love this match.
Jericho was not afraid to potato Scott Steiner.
That's clear.
Yeah.
Like, if I were in the ring with this guy, I wouldn't lay one finger on him. Jericho's just kicking him in the face.
That
and
moonsault, the
Yeah.
Cabrata,
Brutal.
when Scott Steiner screams out in pain on the landing. A lot of fun. And the other star of this, by the way, is Buff Bagwell,
Yes.
who was great. He's interfering frequently, and at one point on the floor, Jericho stumbles past him, and Buff holds up his hands, and he says, "I'm innocent." And then he pokes Jericho in the eye, turns to the camera and says, "I guess I'm guilty."
He's a great heel.
He was awesome. So, the match continues. Jericho,
is in control.
he hits a super kick.
Yes.
He lays out Scott Steiner. He's got him at his mercy.
He's winning on him.
He's very much winning on him. And then goes for the walkout.
Yeah, I'm going to leave now.
What the hell was this? So, he goes to walk out. He runs into Saturn in a dress. Saturn throws him back in, and Steiner hooks the recliner and wins.
We must add that when Saturn threw him back in the ring while wearing a dress, he looked at the camera and he said, "Life's a drag."
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's embracing it.
How did a line that terrible not make it on Raw?
I don't know, but I was cool with it. He's way better in a dress. It's a huge improvement for Saturn.
Nash, Luger, and Liz come out for a promo.
Okay, this was the dumbest thing, ever.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not.
Nash and Luger take off their hats, they pull their hair ties out, they unveil their golden locks. Nash says they want hair on the line, fine. At Super Brawl, we will put Liz's hair on the line against Rey Mysterio's mask. Liz is like, "What? What do you mean, guys?" And Nash says, "Don't worry, baby, it's going to be okay."
Yeah.
And then she goes, "Oh, okay."
That's how it went.
That is exactly how it went.
The only thing you're leaving out is Nash's line about the Star Trek movie with a sexy bald woman in it.
Yeah.
So even if she does get shaved, she'll still be hot. They
Sure.
killed the stip.
This was an utter mockery of a promo to set up an utter mockery of a match, which is going to unmask the legendary Rey Mysterio Jr.
Yes,
Right.
it's terrible.
It's fucking bullshit.
It could not have been worse.
No, it could not have been worse. Not to mention, why was Rey making the challenge?
Yes.
And the heels are laughingly accepting it and putting a woman's hair on the line.
Not only that, but they had mentioned, how about you guys put Liz's hair on the line, and then they accepted that.
I don't know.
That's ridiculous.
Cat comes out for a promo, demands to be referred to as the greatest of all time, dares anyone to come fight him. They cut back to the Wolfpack locker room, where they say, "Hey, Scott, Cat's calling you out." And it's Scott Norton, and he's pissed. And he goes down to the ring. God damn, I love this match.
Yes, sir.
Scott Norton versus the Cat. Best match of 1999.
Absolutely.
Here's what happened, everyone. For 10 wonderful minutes, the best 10 minutes of my day, Scott Norton tortured the Cat. He beat the shit out of him. He slammed him left. He slammed him right. No-sold everything Cat did.
He skinned the cat.
He actually did. He skinned the Cat. He chopped him. He chopped Cat till his chest was red. If you're not familiar with the Cat, folks, he ain't white. He chopped this guy red. He beat him and beat him and beat him. Hit a powerbomb and won.
It's a thing of beauty.
Oh, it was glorious.
Fans loved it.
This is the other key to this. The fans hated the Cat. And they were into this beating as much as I was.
Yes.
They chanted Pussycat. They laughed at him as he screamed in pain. Every time Scott Norton no-sold his offense, they laughed more. So, Cat was doing like blatant low blows and dragging Sonny Ono in the ring trying to get DQ'd. It didn't work.
He no-sold a low blow.
Yeah. And finally he hit a powerbomb and won. I watched this entire match with a huge smile on my face, and when it was done, if I'd had more time, I'd have rewound it and watched it again. Wonderful. Mean Gene brings Goldberg out for an interview. Gene asks about the streak. Goldberg says, "That is the past, so forget it, because I have." And Gene asks about Bam Bam Bigelow, and Goldberg says, "He's not an extremist, he's not the beast from the East, he's just next." And everyone roars, and that was it. Great. He made his point and he was done. Malenko and Flair are throwing balls at the dunk tank.
I love this. They're throwing balls, and finally Flair's just like, fuck it. He walks over, pushes a button, Eric falls in.
And Bischoff pops out of the ice-cold water and screams, "I'll get the last laugh, Flair. Where's your kid?"
I gotta say, Eric Bischoff dedication to this, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. It was
frankly,
live.
He couldn't even put warm water in it because it would have steamed up. You would have saw it on
That's
camera.
true.
I mean, there's also
that. You're
there's
right.
also the fact that if you would have done a pre-tape, you could have got this whole thing done in 5 minutes.
Sure.
And then get him inside. This was not a pre-tape.
No, you could see it, I'm sure, in the off-camera segments he was going inside. But you could see it getting colder and colder throughout the night.
Yeah.
Let's see. Scott Hall versus Chris Benoit in the main event.
You know how bizarre it was to hear Michael Buffer do his introduction for Chris Benoit?
Yes.
I didn't pay much attention to that part, frankly.
I did. He claimed he was 6 feet tall.
Oh.
That's a lie.
He claimed he was the master of the cripple crossface.
That's also a lie.
Well, before that point, what I noted was he called this a special heavyweight eliminator match
Well, he did say Benoit was 220.
for a title shot against Bret Hitman Clark.
Clark.
And then he talked about Scott Hall.
How many times did he do that?
All of them.
That was not the first time.
Did anyone ever correct him?
Hell no.
Why would you?
He talked about Hall's disdain for formal rules.
He's professional. You don't have to correct him.
So Bret Hart, who I presume is a different person than Bret Clark, he joins the commentary desk, and he was awesome.
That's when Brett puts on glasses. He's Brett and Clark.
The mild-mannered reporter
Yes.
for the Calgary Herald. Yes. So Bret says, "Even with my severe groin injury, I'm still much better than Scott Hall or Chris Benoit. I will defeat them at Super Brawl, and I want to say hello to my cat Smokey."
That's where Natty got it, I guess.
I guess. He doesn't understand why Flair's holding a grudge just because I beat him. They're doing this match. Disco interferes. Mongo comes out to take care of Disco.
Oh my God, Mongo. He gets worse every fucking day. And it was horrible to begin with.
I enjoyed watching him absolutely brutalize Disco Inferno.
He fucking goes down there, he beats up Disco, he drags him backstage, he opens the door, there's Arn Anderson in a tire iron.
Yeah.
He throws him in, shuts the door, you hear screaming. That was a crime. He got ganked.
At one point, he threw Disco on the ground, and Disco was face down, and he slapped Disco in the back of the head. It was massively loud.
Dude.
He did not pull that slap.
So they go back to the match. Brett repeats one more time he's going to beat either Hall or Benoit. He's going to enjoy doing it, and he makes his exit. So, shouldn't be a surprise. This was a very good wrestling match. I took great joy in Scott Hall hooking an abdominal stretch and being very, very sneaky about grabbing them ropes.
Yes.
Finally, Benoit makes his comeback. Nash hits the ring. Benoit fights him off, but Hall grabs Benoit, hits the Razor's Edge for the win. So yes, we're going to get Scott Hall versus Bret Hart at Super Bowl for the U.S. title. That's weird.
They teased Benoit versus Bret and took it away from us.
Yeah.
Now it is
That's true.
Bret Hart versus Scott Hall. Yeah.
And finally, Hogan identifies the man in the limo as Zito. Now, Zito looks like Stallone anyway. So I'm sure he knew this. He starts imitating Rocky and calling Hulk Thunderlips.
Well, he's Italian.
That too. So Hulk says, Flair's in Minnesota. We are here in Charlotte to ruin his life. And say David's parking in Flair's spot at the gym. And they go to follow him in. Back at Nitro, we see the Horsemen watching this on a monitor and Flair starting to freak out. Then Hogan and Chuck decide, hey, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't film our assault on this man. And they cut the camera off.
You just now figured that out, you idiot?
Probably
And the
a
show
good
goes
idea,
off the air.
actually.
Well, it's Hulk Hogan and Chuck Zito, Brian. I believe they just figured that out.
Yeah, you never film your crime.
Yeah.
Aaron, what'd you think of this show? When it was over, did you regret not watching it when you were 7 years old in the mid to late 90s?
This show, other than the Scott Norton thing, was completely boring to me, and there was just too many skits.
There were a ton of skits.
And the things with Hogan, I couldn't understand what he was saying. I had to keep stopping, rewinding to try to listen to him. It's like, just speak loudly or, coherently. I don't know why.
Or tape it again?
Or just something. I mean, whenever he's in the ring on the microphone, you can hear him just fine. But when he's talking in a backstage promo or very soft like this, and Vito, and I'm like, dude.
Well, they were being sneaky, so
They're in a car!
I understand that.
In a limo.
Why do they have to be sneaky?
Cameraman.
I'm just saying.
The cameraman Mel. He just kept calling
Cameraman Mel. We did not mention Cameraman Mel.
He did keep talking to Mel.
filming us all day, Mel. Thank, good job, Mel. Oh, wait, we shouldn't film this, Mel.
Well, that was Nitro.
It did take me the entire show to find out what in the fuck was going on with Hulk Hogan, Mel, and Chuck Zito.
Yeah.
And finally at the end I figured out they're going after David Flair.
Yeah, David Flair.
Yeah.
This is why Bischoff was taunting Flair. Where's your kid?
This shouldn't be that hard to figure out.
No.
If that's the main angle on your show.
Yeah. Zito used a line about David Flair that Buddy Wayne used to use. Man, that guy's got a string hanging from his sleeve. Oh, that's his arm.
Ah ha ha!
Yeah. I think Hogan referred to him as those arms are like the little white things that you use to, I don't know if he was calling them ropes, but for when you're doing endurance or something like that.
Called him the tag rope, compared it to the ring post.
Yes.
He called him a tag
Yeah, no,
rope.
Vito did, and then Hogan's like, mine's better.
He did say my joke was better. That is a quote.
Yeah, they were pretending to be real people, but it was bullshit.
They were incapable of doing that.
I don't believe that Hogan's a real person ever.
No. Brian, do you have my music ready?
Oh!
This is going to be very boring, but we have to do it for the sake of completion. Because frankly, the finishes on this show are mostly pretty good. The finishes on this show were clean pin, pin in a hardcore match, clean pin, submission after loads of interference, clean pin, and pin after distraction.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That was a
lot of clean finishes here on this
was.
show.
Tons of them.
Aaron, do you watch this show every week, or was this the first one you'd watched in forever?
For WCW, it's been a while since I watched it. When I first got the network, I started watching a lot of them from 96, 97. I watched a couple from 99 and 2000, and I don't know, man.
Man, well, you know what? You chose a decent show because usually they're about 5 times worse than this one.
That's true.
Oh, no, I listen to your guys' thing every Tuesday, so I know how bad they can be.
Did these fucking people watch Raw? No offense or anything like that, but this Raw was so bad. This Raw was 10 times worse than Nitro. Am I wrong about that? Am I the only one?
They were both appallingly bad.
No. Nitro was not really good, okay? But, like, Raw was actively bad.
There were things on Nitro I actually liked.
There was nothing on Raw that was any good.
I'll give you that.
Nothing. And you know what was amazing about these two shows? It actually does sort of make me mad. The Nitro show was unopposed because of the Westminster Dog Show.
That's right.
They had an unopposed 3 hours, and they gave us that pile of shit.
Yeah, the Raw actually ran on the 13th.
Yes. And Raw... No, Raw was the 8th.
No, it was the 13th.
Well, it said the 8th on TV, unless I watched the wrong one.
Understood.
Okay, well, anyway.
Actually, it ran on the 13th.
Raw...
The network lied to us.
Raw was in Toronto. They claimed 50,000 people. I don't know if 50,000 people were there. I don't know what the real number was, but a lot of people were there. And they gave them that sack of shit show.
It's also true.
Why was this such a popular period? This was so bad. Let's start with Nitro. Isn't that what we normally start with?
It is.
I'm regretting this decision, but go ahead.
Nitro number 178, February 8th, 1999. So, we didn't mention this last week because it was just too uncomfortable to get into, but they replayed it here, and it was brought to our attention. So last week, they actually replayed this. Hulk Hogan and Chuck Zito are sitting in the back of a limo, and they're being filmed, and Chuck says to the cameraman, "Careful, your camera's getting jiggly." To which Hulk Hogan follows up by saying, "Jiggly, jiggly, Jew." Now, I was hoping that it meant like J-O-O, and he was just spouting gibberish, but no, apparently the cameraman was in fact Jewish. And as Dave wrote about at the time, Hogan got heat for this, but not so much heat that they didn't replay it a week later.
I honest to God didn't even notice, because Hogan's in a limo with Chuck Zito, and they're both mumbling.
Yeah.
And just nothing.
Yeah.
They're just mumbling for an hour about nothing. I zoned all of it out. Then I go on the board the next day and I realized, wow, look what we missed.
Yeah. So they did a whole show-long storyline.
Yes.
About Hulk Hogan and Chuck Zito threatening David Flair.
Yes.
Following him around Charlotte, threatening to kick his ass in the gym, and then the cliffhanger was they turned their camera off just as Nitro ended, and Ric Flair didn't know if they were going to kill his son David or not.
Yes.
That's right.
We tune in a week later. No attack.
No.
All mind games.
Okay, now
just
hold
fucking
on.
with him.
Hold on. I don't want to give any spoilers here, okay? But
19 years later.
sometimes they do things, and then like it's just dropped the next week, okay? This week, they said that nothing happened. And then later, Arn Anderson is on the phone with Ric Flair.
Well, it was actually earlier. It was from Thunder. But
Yeah,
yes.
whatever. But anyway, they show the clip, and basically, David claimed he also saw nothing.
I missed that detail.
Yes. So, there's a storyline here. It wasn't just dropped.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll learn more later.
To continue.
Yes.
To be continued.
But I will tell you what did suck about this show that you haven't mentioned yet. So this was the first week
Just started.
that this show became Lucha Underground.
Yeah.
They had a whole bunch of backstage skits, and the goddamn announcers couldn't see them.
No.
But we could.
Yes.
So, like, we saw what was going on, but the announcers had no idea what was happening backstage. So they're clueless about half the stuff happening on the show. They can't explain it. They can't tell us what's happening. They don't even know what's going on. This is very important, by the way.
The Nitro Girls danced. DDP was hanging nearby to assure Scott Steiner to not attack them.
Yes.
Disco Inferno went into the Wolfpack locker room, where they had laid out Arn Anderson so Disco could get revenge for the beating Arn gave him last week. Remember this. You, the viewer at home, were playing pool. I wrote here a cameraman.
This is a porn clip. Come to life.
Yes, this was Tori Wilson making her Nitro debut in a POV porn shoot.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
She's looking at the camera saying, "Hey, you."
What you see...
Hey, you.
Yeah, she's pointing at the camera.
Yeah.
Well, even before that, you see your own hands playing pool.
Yeah.
And then Tori Wilson walks up to you in a bar. It happens to me all the time. Women like Tori come up and talk to me. And she talks about what happened last week was cool and they should go outside. And so you, the viewer, follow her.
Yeah. Now, obviously, in real life, it's not us, the viewer. But
Right.
we don't know who it is.
No. And by the end of the show, we don't.
Yeah.
I think I remember how it goes down.
And this is supposed to be like a sport,
Yeah.
but somehow they're doing some wacky story where we're getting a point of view shot of Tori Wilson
Yeah.
talking to us. But it's not us.
Which does sound better than most
And we
night
never
shows.
find out who it is.
No.
Although we will.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
Speaking of Nitro debuts...
Let's go for a ride, she says.
Yes. You're off for a ride. Blitzkrieg versus Rey Mysterio Jr. I don't know who is in charge of the graphics in Nitro, but for the record, it was spelled Blitzkreig.
It's named after Craig.
That's not how you spell my
He
name.
was a West Coast guy.
So, for those of you who don't remember or don't know, Blitzkrieg was a SoCal indie guy, and from his gear, you could tell he was an indie guy.
That's right.
I'm pretty sure he sewed his outfit himself.
That's utterly believable.
Yeah. It was horrific.
It was awful. He was very, very talented. He was in WCW for like 3 months, and then decided he didn't like wrestling and quit and was never seen again.
It
You
was
know-
longer than that because we actually saw him in at Spring Stampede.
That
So
was
it's about a
spring
year.
99, wasn't it?
Oh, wow, it was.
Yeah.
Yes, so about 3 months, like I said.
I apologize, Vinny.
So, you know who he
accept it.
reminded me of was Jack Evans when he started.
Is that right?
He's a
What a
very,
coincidence.
very, very athletic guy.
Yes.
He killed himself on every bump.
Yes.
He could not lock up.
His fundamentals were
He
awful.
had no fundamentals, but he could be carried to a good match.
He was very, very talented, utterly self-taught. Watched a lot of Tiger Mask tapes. Didn't learn everything.
If I didn't know better, I would think it was Jack.
Well, it was later.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's right. He did become
Jack was a huge Blitzkrieg
Blitzkrieg
fan.
too, yeah.
And when Blitzkrieg quit, Jack bought his gear.
Well, goddamn.
He still, as far as I know.
He lived up to the reputation
Yes.
and exceeded it.
So they had a very fun, high-flying match. As long as they were doing flips and dives, it was cool. When they had to do grapples and punching, it sucked.
Yep.
Half of it sucked. And eventually, Blitzkrieg missed a moonsault. Ray hit a top rope Rana for the win.
You know, I was watching this match, and this is no disrespect to Blitzkrieg because he was a great athlete. He did great flips, and he took great bumps. But it was very obvious, like, Rey Mysterio is just like an all-time great.
Yeah.
Like, looking at these two guys, you could see why Rey Mysterio became an all-time great. And like throughout the history of the next 19 years, they took a bunch of dudes and put masks on them and tried to give them little pushes here and there. And none of them got over like Ray.
No.
Because Ray was special.
Yes.
He had a great fucking match with this guy.
He did.
It was awesome. And Larry's there talking about how these guys would be better off going over Niagara Falls in a barrel. That's how you're getting over Blitzkrieg his first night.
There was
They're
two-
fucking doing stupid shit. They'd be better off going over a waterfall.
There was 2 Niagara Falls references in one in each show this week. I don't know if you caught that.
It wasn't one on Raw.
I don't remember, but I remember it was there.
Sure wasn't Viagra Falls in the Val Venus segment.
I watched the episode of Grand Tour last night where they went to Niagara Falls too.
Oh,
That's relevant only to me.
understood.
Had a hype video for the Ray, Conan, Luger, Nash mask versus hair match at Super Brawl.
God.
Any more to add to that, or?
No.
No.
Okay. It's just dumb.
Well, speaking of dumb, Canyon went to Raven's house.
You know what I love about this?
No.
So apparently, like, Raven's doing the thing where he's depressed and he never wrestles.
Sure.
And remember I was starting to get mad about it? Like, are we going anywhere with this fucking thing?
Yes, you were.
Well, apparently Nash hated it too. And then he took over and he was like, we got to kill this. And so he came up with this, a new character for Raven.
Oh, he came up with this.
Yeah, this was like his wacky idea to change the Raven character.
The idea
Why
here,
didn't you just change it?
The idea here wasn't the worst ever. It was mostly the execution. So, Raven says hello to, or excuse me, Mama Raven says hello to Chris. She's still very worried about Scotty, but she has to leave.
He's very depressed.
Yes.
Chris.
So she leaves, and Chris goes to take care of Scotty. Hey, Rave, he says. You gotta snap out of your funk. At this point, Raven looks backwards over his shoulder to his own personal camera that apparently only he can see.
Yes.
And we can see, but Kenyon can't see it.
Or the announcers.
or the announcers,
Should add.
and Raven says, "What a mark."
What a mark.
His exact words. And he turns to Kanyon, explains how great it is to be rich. They go into his garage. He's got all these cool convertibles. Kanyon asks, how come we always drive crappy cars? Raven says it drives his mom crazy, and they get in the convertible, and they drive away.
It was a Lamborghini, by the way. It wasn't just a convertible.
I was not, even though I watched the Grand Tour, which is a car show, I didn't know that. But thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Booker T versus Finlay.
Oh, God.
So they're doing this match. It's going on for some time.
It was a good match.
Of course it
Let's
was.
get that out of the way
It's Booker
first.
T and Finlay.
Yes.
Of course it was. And suddenly, we go backstage where Hulk Hogan is having a chat with Horace.
It's different, Vinny. So this is what I was talking about earlier. The announcers say, we got to go to a break. But they don't go to a break. They go backstage for this goofy skit.
Yes.
So I'll let you talk about the skits, but they go to a skit. They go to commercial.
Yeah.
They come back with another skit. And then they go back to the ring. The announcers are oblivious to any of the skits.
Yes.
It's so fucking awkward. Like, we missed 10 minutes of this match.
Yes.
And it happened multiple times on this show.
Yeah. So, okay, they're in the match. The announcers say we're going to a break. Instead, we go to Hulk Hogan and Horace, who have like a 3-minute skit. It's not like a little 2-sentence
Went on
thing.
forever.
Yep.
Hogan explains he wants Horace to take over leadership of the Black and White. But don't tell anyone.
Yeah, so hold on a second. Hogan's plan is, I want you to be the leader, but don't tell the other guys.
Right.
Yeah.
How the fuck do you do that?
Don't know.
How?
I don't know.
I want you to be the leader, so like go out there and lead, but don't tell them that you're the leader.
Right.
This is a bad plan.
Are you certain you hated Raw more than this show?
Oh yeah. Oh, don't even get me started.
Well, I will soon. So we go to commercial, not knowing what happened in the match. We come back. There's another skit. A completely unrelated skit. Mm-hmm. Ric Flair has put Eric Bischoff to work cleaning the bathroom. They go over this for a while.
By the way, it took Vinny about 2 seconds to say that.
Right.
It took him 10 minutes
Yes.
to get through Flair telling Eric Bischoff to clean out the goddamn bathroom.
Yeah. And after all this, we go back to the ring where the match is still going on. Now, you said earlier it was a good match. And what we saw of it was, and I can confirm, Booker T made his big comeback and everyone went crazy. He won with a missile dropkick. I can confirm the ending was good and the beginning was good. We missed at least half this match.
That's true, but you know what? The beginning and the end of this match that we saw was better than anything on Raw.
That's probably true.
So it was a better
wrestling,
show.
Sure, yeah.
Well, they blew a ton of spots. But after they blew them, they ended up hitting each other really, really hard.
Yeah, I liked it.
Especially the one where Booker T tried to leapfrog Finlay. He came up short and landed on Finlay's shoulder.
I think that was the heat.
Yeah.
No, they planned it that way.
No.
Yeah.
There's no
Because
way.
he hit the leapfrog once, and then Finlay comes right back under. He does a leapfrog again.
I don't know.
He's going to do back-to-back leapfrogs for no reason.
Maybe.
I think he's going to do a leapfrog. He landed on Finlay's shoulder, hurt his nuts, and Finlay beat him up.
Actually, it is a famous spot to do 2 leapfrogs, but...
All right. I've been wrong before.
Anyway, besides that, it was a cool match. They hit each other really hard. It was
Did
awesome.
hit each other really hard, as you would expect Booker T and Finlay to do. Raven and his Inhumans t-shirt were at the bank to get some money.
Yes.
Some.
Specifically, $10,000 in ones, and then $10,000 more in big bills.
And how come we didn't see where the ones were spent?
We kind of did. I will get to that later.
Okay.
Canyon says, why would anyone need $10,000 in $1 bills?
Yes. And
Canyon is a mark.
Every time
He
Canyon,
is a mark.
throughout the every
Raven
time
was right.
every time in these skits, Canyon would say something stupid. Raven would look into his own camera that only we and him saw, and he'd say something like, "What an idiot! What a mark!" He would just roll his eyes or whatever.
Breaking down the fourth wall.
It was like the fifth wall, really.
That's
'cause
true.
That's true. The fact this skit alone exists is the fourth wall. This.
And then the teller goes, I'll give you the 10,000 in big bills, the way you like it.
Well, twice. There was two.
And I'm like,
separate
how can you not like 10,000 in $1 bills if that's how you're going to spend it? You'll be there for weeks.
Maybe.
Maybe how you like it. Anyway, They leave the bank. They are literally carrying giant sacks of money over their shoulder.
Yeah.
I was sad because they didn't have the big dollar sign on it like I've been told all my childhood.
In my imagination, that was just the side that was on their back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they get in the hot convertible with a big bags of money, and drive away.
The only thing missing when they drove off, a couple of dollar bills fly out the back.
That actually looked.
Raven says, "Can you? We need to get you a new look."
Raven says this.
Yeah.
He wasn't wrong.
Jimmy Hart and the Faces of Fear were soiling the bathrooms to make Bischoff's life worse.
So stupid.
Hogan met with Bryan Adams.
Yeah.
He says, "I want you to take over the black and white, but don't tell anybody."
Yes. Then he laughs
This may sound familiar.
because the camera's invisible.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Clearly, the black and white doesn't watch Nitro.
The leader is sowing discord.
I guess we're supposed to believe that if they watched the show, this wouldn't be on it
I don't know.
because the announcers can't see it. It's stupid.
I'm not going to try to make sense of this. It is, in fact, stupid. Mean Gene brings out Ric Flair for a promo.
Better than anything on Raw,
True.
Now,
with one exception.
so Gene, like the only guy who actually knows what's going on throughout this and trying desperately to make everything make sense. Before Rick can speak, Gene says, "I know we all saw Arn Anderson backstage, and I know he told you to deliver a message to the NWO." So in Gene's mind, because Ric Flair would not see his friend being tortured on TV and hang out for 20 minutes and then come out and talk like nothing happened. So Gene is doing his best to tell the viewer that Arn was rescued and now Rick's here to talk about it.
Went over my head. I got a better question. What the hell's a match at Super Brawl?
Flair and Hogan.
No, the Bret Hart match.
It was going to be based, well, that's what he talked about here.
I know. I could not understand a word he said. All I know is the Hall match is off,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, the match that was the main event last week.
Yeah.
He just canceled it.
Yeah.
After he signed
Last
it.
week in the main event, Scott Hall beat Chris Benoit for
Okay.
a U.S. title shot.
Right, yeah.
Here in his first segment back, he took that title shot away because he doesn't like Scott Hall.
Okay, so who's getting it?
Maybe no one by the end of this.
Okay. Because he explains that Hall isn't getting the shot, and Bret has to accept the match,
Sure.
or he has to drop the title and go back to Canada. But I couldn't figure out who's getting the match.
See, you were paying attention to that part that didn't make sense. I was paying attention to how Ric Flair had no idea what happened to Arn Anderson. Clearly, that skit was not part of his day.
No, it wasn't.
No.
It was like they knew that somebody was going to win the title later.
No.
Sure.
No.
Because why would they give Brett a match? Because if he was going to lose the title later on in the night.
Listen, I'm glad Brian enjoyed this show, this promo. I got nothing out of it except confusion and bewilderment.
Okay, here's what I got out of it, okay? So, Flair vows to win the title. He threatens to strip naked.
True.
Says he's going to tap out Hogan with the figure 4. That's all clear, right?
I agree with that.
Then we got this goofy Super Brawl thing where Hall is no longer getting a title shot. Bret has to defend against somebody,
Sure.
okay? Maybe somebody was named. Maybe Flair forgot. Gene didn't seem to know. The announcers didn't know. But one way or the other, Bret must defend at Super Brawl or he will be stripped of the title. So Bret comes out and he doesn't want to drop the title.
Why would
So
he?
he's going to face whoever it is at Super Brawl, who we don't know, and Gene doesn't know, and the announcers don't know, and Flair forgot. And so Flair says, well, you're going to be wrestling tonight against Rowdy Roddy Piper. Place goes absolutely crazy. They're chanting Hot Rod. Flair's out of his mind, sweat's flying. I mean, it was better than Raw, but I have no idea what he was talking about. That's fair.
Getting back to my original point. Gene says, I know Arn told you to say something, and Flair says, that's right, Arn told me to tell it like it is. And he's smiling and happy because he doesn't know about the skit.
That's right.
They did.
But I don't think Gene knows either.
Gene brought it up. He must have known something.
Gene got information earlier in the day before Arn got beaten up.
All right.
It doesn't matter.
The point is we're all confused and have no idea what the hell Flair was talking about.
Well, I do know I saw Will Sasso there.
That's also true. Bret is leaving the ring. He is shouting at fans, and he gets into it with Will Sasso, who none of you could possibly know who it is in 2018. He's not famous still, is he?
Actually, when I saw Will Sasso, he was so fat.
He was a large man.
He looked to be in his 40s. I had to check to see
Okay.
if he was still alive. I know that sounds terrible.
And that's a wrestling show. It's a very fair question.
Okay, number 1, he is still alive.
Good.
Number 2, he is still doing things in entertainment.
Okay.
Okay? He's 42 right now.
Oh,
He's younger than I am.
so he was 20. He's my age.
He's our age.
He was 23 here.
Yeah.
Huh.
That is inconceivable. Dude!
That was a big,
And-
fat, old 23-year-old.
He has lost weight.
Good.
He's still fat, but he's
He's not 400 pounds.
he looked like 800 pounds here.
Well,
The irony is that I was listening to Wrestling Observer last night,
Oh, yeah, here's another one of them.
and somebody asked the question, who was the biggest celebrity that drew the most money? And Dave actually...
No, the question was like, who are the successes, who are the failures?
Right. And Dave brings up Will Sasso.
Yeah.
Last night.
Completely at random.
nutty.
And now here he
So
is.
weird.
19 years ago this week.
For those of you still asking who he is, there was a show called Mad TV. It was a sketch comedy show. He was on it, and I guess Brett was on it once.
Dude, think about this. Like 5 years ago, he was on Raw. Because he was Curly of the Three Stooges.
What?
And he was one of the guest hosts.
That's right, he
What?
was. I do remember that now. When the Three Stooges, yes. They did a Three Stooges movie, and that was him. Good work, Brian.
Thank you. Crazy.
Well, here in 1999, Brett gets in his face, and Tony Schiavone says, "Look, Brett is having an argument with Will Sasso." And Larry Zbyszko says, "Who is it?"
Right.
Way to put your star over, Larry. Way to get the celebrity over.
An idiot.
Back to the point of view porn shoot. Tori is in a limo with you, and she tells you she won't bite too much.
My favorite part of this is I kept just writing, Tori Wilson continues to seduce us. Mm-hmm. And then like 3 segments later, she actually said, what, do you think I'm trying to seduce you?
Yes,
It
yes,
sure
I
felt
do.
that way. Had a tag team tournament video package, highlighting great teams of the past, going over all the teams that are in this tournament. This was pretty cool and would have been really good to air before the tournament started.
Yeah, last week.
It's been several weeks.
They started it last week, didn't they?
It started and stopped quite a few times.
Okay.
They did say the finals would be at Super Bowl.
And also, it's a double elimination now.
They've made it very clear it's been a double elimination tournament. God. Hulk Hogan met with Stevie...
By the way, I'm sorry. You know, it was funny because last week, Benoit and Malenko lost that match
That was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then this week, Flair turns it into double elimination so he can get his boys back in the tournament.
It's been double elimination for a while.
Okay.
I've mentioned it a few times.
My bad.
I accept your apology.
I didn't say sorry.
Oh my God. Hennig and Wyndham versus Bryan Adams
No,
and
he's
Horace.
skipping something.
Oh.
Hogan and Stevie Ray.
that's right.
Hogan meets Stevie Ray and says, "I want you to lead the black and white, but don't tell anybody."
That's right. Keep it a secret.
And all these dipshits keep falling for this. I'll be a secret leader.
What's his grand plan here?
Fuck with people.
Yeah.
I see.
So, we get Horace and Bryan Adams versus Kurt Hennig and Barry Windham.
So, do you know, fun fact, on the sheet in the back, they gave this match 20 minutes.
Excuse me.
And by the grace of God, Ric Flair talked too long, and so they had to cut their time.
Oh, thank the Lord.
Good.
Can you fucking imagine?
Well, let's talk about what happened and imagine it going on for twice as long. First of all, once again, in the middle of the match, they cut backstage for a skit.
Yes.
The luchadors are complaining to Bischoff there is no lotion in the bathroom. Again, this took me 3 seconds to say, and they stretched it out over like 5 minutes.
So there were a bunch of luchadors in the bathroom
Yes,
looking for lotion.
that's what happened.
But they gave him aftershave.
Okay.
Don't think about it too deeply.
Fair enough.
They go to commercial. They come back. I was very disappointed to see the match was going on. They should have just stayed with the luchadors. I promise it would have been more entertaining. This fucking match. It's going on.
Wasn't the worst match on the show.
It was the worst match in this segment.
It was the worst match in this match.
Yes.
You're right about that.
It's terrible. It's going on forever. And then they get to the end. Okay. Vince comes for Horace and Bryan Adams have both been given the speech, "I want you to be in charge," as has Stevie Ray.
Yes.
Right.
Out comes Vince, who has not gotten the speech yet. Out comes Stevie Ray, who has also gotten the speech. Adams and Horace hit a stuffed pile driver. Wyndham takes the ref. Bryan Adams makes a cover, and then nothing happens for a long time.
I love, by the way, that Bryan Adams cannot do a pile driver to save his fucking life.
Right.
And as a team, they're going to use a stuffed pile driver for the finish.
And they let Adams do it.
So I went back and timed it. Bryan Adams had Kurt Hennig pinned for 24 seconds.
That's a fucking stuffed pile driver, dude.
And for most of
been
those
down
24
for
seconds,
years.
He's just looking at the ref. He's not complaining. He's not waving for the ref. He's just lying there.
He's covering him the whole time.
So eventually, Vincent jumps in the apron with a slapjack. Stevie Ray jumps in the apron and says, "Hey, that's mine." He grabs it from Vince. Vince falls down. Stevie swings the slapjack. Hennig dodges. Adams gets hit. Hennig makes a cover. The ref counts 3.
Is that convoluted enough for you?
I got it.
Like it was forget about that. The timing on this was so atrocious.
Yeah.
I would assume everyone was out of position because clearly nobody was doing the right thing.
Well, let's see. We had Bryan Adams, Horace, Vincent,
there.
and fucking Stevie Ray.
Are you
No
implying
shit, they were all out of position?
It may not have been Mr. Perfect's fault.
Jesus Christ. This was terrible.
It was an atrocity.
Better than anything on Raw.
Tori told us.
They had a goddamn finish. I can't wait till you go over to the finishes on Raw.
Oh, they're special. I'm not denying that. They are special.
Dude. That had to set a record for the most bullshit finishes on a single show ever. When you count the gauntlet,
if you count the
where
gauntlet,
every
it's
fucking finish was a DQ.
I'm sure it was then.
Jeez.
Tori told us we had nothing to be nervous about. Excuse me, she told you, the viewer, that you had nothing to be nervous about and invited you into an elevator.
Yeah.
Then she looked at you and bit her lip in anticipation. She was the best part of the show, let's be honest. Hogan met with Vince. Now, if you're not paying attention, and I don't blame you for not, 5 minutes ago, Vince was laid out in a brawl with the rest of the NWO guys.
Yes.
Now he's here meeting with Hogan.
Yeah.
Hogan gives him a message. I want you to take over the black and white, but don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Vince says, cool. And he leaves.
Now, the comedy in these things, every time the camera comes back to Hogan, he's polishing his belt.
He's polishing his belt.
Every single time.
He would polish his belt when they came in, and then after they left, he would laugh at them for being so stupid.
He polishes the belt that they defaced with spray paint.
Right.
Yeah. Just want to make that clear.
Mean Gene brings Bam Bam Bigelow out for a promo.
This was a good promo.
You know what's funny
Great
is...
segment, actually.
It turned out great. Like, at the beginning, nobody cared
Yeah.
when he's talking, but... The thing with Bigelow is, when he first showed up, his feud with Goldberg was so hot. But they were in the middle of Goldberg and Nash and Goldberg and Hall. So they couldn't pull the trigger on this thing. So it just kind of fizzled. So I got to give credit to mostly Bigelow and Goldberg, not the actual fucking company, but Bigelow comes out, nobody gives a shit. All he has to say is he compares Goldberg's imaginary wife to a dog.
Yeah.
And Goldberg, just 8 feet wide, storms down to the ring
Like a
and
freight train.
beats the shit out of this guy, and they have this great brawl. And by the time they were done, like, it was hot again. This was better than anything on Raw.
Right. That's for sure.
Thank you.
So the point of the promo was there was a story in USA Today about Bill Goldberg's animal rights activism. Specifically, Bam Bam noted he's too distracted to focus on the match because he's obsessed with cockfighting. And he says this, and Gene pulls back the mic and says, "You're talking about chickens and roosters." Apparently, Gene thought one person at home thought he was talking about something else.
Yes, there's 2 men in the alley naked. Yeah, I could see it.
So Bam Bam goes on and says, "Goldberg, if you're so concerned about animals, I'll adopt an animal. I'll take your old lady. I'll put her on a leash, feed her elbow, take her for walks." And as noted, Goldberg came out pissed off. They had an outstanding brawl and it was broken up. That was a great segment. So Paige is watching the Nitro girls again, just making sure they're safe.
This was like some chick walks up.
Well, yes, they went to commercial in the middle.
Yes.
And then when they come back, Paige is somewhere else hanging out with Jason Hervey.
Yes.
So
I think this was supposed to be something that was filmed elsewhere.
Okay.
All I know is up walks Rita Sever.
I didn't get her name.
Do you know how much Googling I had to do to find out who this woman was?
More than I did.
A lot! So apparently the show was called Later, and there's a period in the mid-90s where they just had a whole bunch of different guest hosts,
I see.
and one of them was her.
Okay.
She did nothing else that I can find. Like, she has an IMDb that's empty. I mean, so he's going to be on her show, and she says, hey, check out my wrestling promo.
Right.
It's a combination of Ric Flair, Randy Savage, and Hulk Hogan. I'm not even going to try.
Thank you.
It was the most cringe-worthy thing you've ever seen in your entire life. It's so embarrassing. And she must know, because as soon as she does the Ric Flair woo, she's out of there. She just gets off screen as fast as she can. And then Diamond Dallas Page, who, by the way, is married to Kimberly and is in a major storyline about a guy trying to steal his wife, basically looks at the camera and goes, it's hot.
Yeah.
That happened. That all happened.
She was no Kimberly Page.
No.
She was really cute, but
She was fine. But it was funny because they got back to the announcers. The announcers are touting all of the publicity that WCW is getting all over the world. And then I didn't know who this woman was until Brian explained who it was.
well, now you know. Rita Sever.
I described her as some woman.
I would bet that... never mind. DDP and Chaos.
Kenny Chaos versus Dallas Page. There's nothing wrong with this match, but it went longer than Kenny Chaos and DDP needed to go.
Yes.
It was DDP's fatal flaw, that he must have a good match with everybody,
Yeah.
even if they're a geek.
Yeah.
There's no reason to have a 5-minute back-and-forth match with Chaos.
No. He won with a diving cutter.
Yeah, it was cool.
By he, I mean Page, in case you're confused.
Yes.
Raven took Kanyon to Versace. Or as Kanyon called it, Versace.
Yeah.
Which caused Raven to look at his magical personal camera and call him a maroon.
Raven was such a geek here, and Kanyon was even a bigger geek.
So they go in to buy some fancy clothes. Canyon's pants are too big, and he's got some other wacky outfit. And then the attendant pulls the curtain back, and Canyon's there in his underwear, and he's all embarrassed. They did at least leave the store in nice clothes, because throughout this entire segment, Raven's been Raven in his sleeveless Inhumans t-shirt and his jorts. Here he had some fancy-ass shirt and pants on, and Kanyon was all dressed up too. So we go to commercial, and they come back, and we see a bunch of signs. For a long time, I had no idea where this was going until the very end. But there's like a pool hall. We just see the neon sign.
That was him out on the town.
Dance clubs,
Yep.
bars.
I see.
They went club hopping. And then
With $20,000 in large and small bills.
Well, do you need the small bills? Because the very last place they went was the Gold Club. Yes, that Gold Club.
oh, that's right.
Yes. It was. That's
It's a big
Craig is
scandal
confused.
in the 90s.
In the 1990s, there was a gentleman's club in Atlanta called the Gold Club, which was frequented by pro baseball players and football players and basketball players and professional
and
wrestlers.
wrestlers.
Yeah.
Later, many people involved in the management of this club were indicted on all sorts of really bad federal charges, and this because of this trial, many rich and famous athletes were called in to testify, including NBA star Patrick Ewing, who said under oath about what happened there. The girls danced, started fondling me, I got aroused, they performed oral sex, I hung around a little bit and talked to them, then I left.
Get that drop.
The greatest. I'm a happily married man. Don't ruin my life. I said that for your entertainment. Anyway, so Raven and Kane went to the Gold Club and left certainly without the $10,000 in ones. They're back at the house. It's daylight again. I guess they were out all night. They're talking
You
to,
guess?
talking to Raven.
$20,000.
By the way, Mama Raven is at the longest board meeting I've ever heard of.
Yes. Yes. So she tells Scotty, WCW called, they want you to go back to work. He shrugs and says, okay.
Gets all depressed.
He gets a little depressed, and he passes by her, but he's still right next to her. And he looks into his magic camera and says, she's not too bright. So now we know Raven's mom is deaf.
Yeah. Well, the camera's invisible.
So that was the end.
Yeah.
Now, I don't remember how this goes. If you were to bet, do you think when Raven comes out on Nitro next week, he's going to be in his cool Versace clothes, or is he going to be in jorts and a sleeveless t-shirt again?
Fuck if I know.
I suspect this all accomplishes nothing. He's just fucking Raven.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see.
Oh my god. Mm-hmm. Oh my god.
Okay, now this. This was worse than anything on Raw.
Absolutely.
But it was funny, so I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I did, in fact, write at the end of this. This show is easily into so bad it's good territory. Kat and Sonny Ono come out. Kat does his usual spiel. I am the greatest. Calls all the fans fat boys.
I challenge anybody in the back.
Challenge anybody in the back. They go backstage where the NWO tells Vince that Kat's calling him out by name. He doesn't want to go, but they bully him into going, so he goes out to fight. As he's leaving, one of them, I wish I didn't know who it was, one of them says, go out there and pretend that you know how to wrestle. He did. That is exactly what he did.
First, he runs into Disco.
Yes.
He tries to pass the buck. Disco's not falling for it this week.
No.
So he finally comes out, and listen, it took us 30 seconds to explain that. Mm-hmm. This is fucking 10 minutes of TV here.
Yeah.
Shat's in the ring for 10 fucking minutes issuing an open challenge while they do all this bullshit backstage commercials or whatever. And by the way, was it ever explained why nobody comes out to challenge Ernest the Cat Miller?
He's beneath him.
This ain't Rick Steiner.
I don't know.
This ain't Goldberg. This ain't like a big threat. It's Ernest Miller.
Scott Norton destroyed him last week. It was great.
So fucking Vincent comes out. No matter what I've ever said about Ernest Miller, he's 10 times the worker that Vincent is.
I think you're being...
Maybe 100?
Yeah.
Vincent is so unbelievably horrible. You've never had a match this bad. You've never had a match this bad.
Thank you.
Tony, who had a couple of YWF matches, has never had a match this bad. This fucking match was so bad, and I can't even explain the finish. I'm going to tell you what I saw, okay?
Okay.
So they're doing this
do your best.
fucking terrible match. My profanity does not even begin to explain how fucking terrible this match was. Ernest Miller goes up to the top rope. His manager, Sonny Ono, his manager, jumps up on the apron. I guess Ono tried to hit Vincent
Right.
over the ropes.
Yes.
But somehow in doing so, he accidentally crotches Ernest Miller.
Correct.
Ernest Miller falls into the ring. They're fucking they're just slumped in the corner, both of them. And somehow Vincent ends up on top and gets the pin.
Yeah.
The way I saw it, I don't know if I'm right or you're right, I think what the idea was that Sonny would be on the apron for whatever reason, and Vince would grab him and throw him into the cat.
That didn't happen.
That's the best I could do. This match was in fact fucking shitty.
It was so bad.
In fact, that's a factual statement. That's not an opinion. It was fucking shitty. Vince won, and I did go back and time it. The entire segment went 12 minutes.
I swear to God, there's no way there's a worse match in 1999. In fact, I got to go find out.
How long had Vince been in?
That is my other question. Has anyone...
Go ahead.
Has there ever been a guy who lasted longer or made more money in this business with zero value?
No, of course not.
He brought nothing to the table.
How long had he been wrestling at this point? Because he couldn't...
A decade!
He couldn't take a bump.
He could run the ropes.
He could not take a bump. He hit... I don't know how he made it out alive. These were the worst flat back bumps I've ever seen in my life.
Worst match of the year. Observer Awards. Oh, fuck. Al Snow versus the Big Boss Man, Kennel from Hell.
Pretty bad.
It's going to be tough.
As I recall...
I mean, I can't imagine it being worse than this.
As I recall, at some point in this horrible NWO feud, we actually get, on pay-per-view, Vince versus Stevie Ray.
Oh, God.
So, the competition that year was quite stiff. All right, we're in the parking lot. Kimberly and Paige are getting ready to leave. Scott Steiner goes to harass her. Paige zooms in and attacks. Security tries to break up the fight, but all 12 guys hold back Paige. So Steiner's free to go. Steiner attempts to carjack Kimberly. He succeeds, actually.
Yeah, he didn't attempt.
How realistic was this, Vinny?
Mine, I don't look like Kimberly, first of all.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine didn't go anything at all like this, actually. So Steiner zooms off with Kimberly. Does a Yui. Paige goes out and runs and stands in front of the car. Don't do that, everyone.
No.
When you're a madman, I know it's your wife and you want to save your wife, but it's a car. You can't diamond cutter a car. The car zooms by.
Cool spot, though.
Look awesome. The door opens. A stunt woman dressed as Kimberly falls out of the door, rolls on the cement, lands right at Page's feet. Page is not shocked. Page is not horrified. Page is ready to pick a fight. Page starts yelling at people, get an ambulance. God damn it. They go to commercial.
It looked good.
I mean, the one thing I'll say is when the
And
EMTs
professional
came
stunt
out,
driver, I'm sure.
Sure.
the EMTs did a very believable job.
Yes.
They actually
That's true.
put her in a real neck brace. They actually carefully loaded her onto the backboard.
So
that
not
was
the-
at least realistic.
But not
Page
the
was at
people that were attending to Shawn Michaels a few weeks ago.
No.
Page was at least distressed after the break.
I do have to say one thing, though. I mean, maybe there was a cut that I didn't see, but, like, Steiner's driving like a fucking idiot in this
There was a
car
cut.
backstage.
There was a cut.
There was? Okay.
Yeah. This was
Because after a while, I mean, there was a deal with Brett where he had to be the stunt driver.
Yes.
And he almost killed himself.
Yes.
He was furious about it.
I did notice that the security guards were slipping all over the place, so it's very possible it was icy.
Yeah, I'm sure it was icy. Yeah, one security guard just goes flying when he ran out there.
Yeah. So, as they're tending to Kimberly, Tony Schiavone says, "Can you believe that? Scott Steiner pushed her out of a moving car."
How would he have done that?
I'm assuming everyone listening has actually driven a car at some point. You can't just throw the other door open.
It's Scott Steiner we're talking
Now,
about. here.
granted, I know his arms are bigger than mine.
It's true.
He still can't push a grown human. He can't open the door, first of all. Anyway, it's much more believable and just as traumatic to say she jumped out of a moving car to get away from him. But no one's smart and
Maybe next week he'll say that, like, she was making a move on me and I was pushing her away.
To defend
and
myself?
the door just flew open and out she went. We'll see.
Larry Zbyszko was in the bathroom lecturing Bischoff.
Gosh, such a douche.
Which one?
Both of them.
Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper. So they're doing this brawl.
Hey, let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
First off, Piper can barely get his shirt off. But,
He was wearing a schmedium.
to his credit, he was in so much better shape than the last time he was on Nitro.
Yeah.
He almost had abs.
Part of
He
the thing-
wasn't great, but, like, Brett, even with a torn groin, is good enough that they had, like, a totally fine match.
I enjoyed the match.
Yeah, this was a pretty good. It was better than anything on Raw.
Nothing to make fun of. In fact, I only have praise. The shirt thing, I forget who it was that pointed it out to me. It may have been Buddy Rose, but Piper always took his shirt off that way. It would be super tight, and he'd get it all, tightened up in his grip, and then pop it over his head real quick, so he never had to take his eyes off his opponent.
I see.
As a Piper
I
thing.
see.
Yeah. Now, it was a very, very small shirt.
Yes,
So that's part of it,
and
too.
he was large.
He was a large man. So, yeah, they're doing this match. It's a perfectly fine brawl. And Brett does the best sell job ever of a low blow. It was so great.
It was so great. I thought he.
You also thought, yes.
Yeah.
I went
Because-
back and watched it 3 times.
And the announcers
I
are
could
like,
not
"Oh
believe
my God, he got Piper low blowed him."
The storyline was Brett was faking an injury.
Yeah,
He was so great at it, we thought Piper must have hit him.
I rewound it because
Same here.
when they said that Piper hadn't, I was like, I saw it with my own eyes.
Yeah.
and then I went back and my eyes deceived me.
Bret Hart was awesome.
It was fucking great.
So
on the show, like, I didn't see it. Maybe I skipped it. I don't think so. But, like, on the actual show, they had footage of Mad TV. They didn't show that, did they?
No, they never
Okay.
show anything like that on here.
So they explained that what happened was Brett was a guest on Mad TV with Will Sasso,
okay.
and he shot on him,
Ha.
and he put him in the sharpshooter in the middle of a skit.
Yeah, sure.
What?
It was not a shoot. They did a skit.
Well, of
that
course
ended-
not,
they
but
did-
that's what they're pretending.
Right, they did a skit that ended with Brett putting Will Sasso in a sharpshooter. And
Yeah.
WCW is pretending the sketch comedy show was a real fight.
Yes, yes.
So they do this match. Brett, they bring the doctor in and check Brett's nuts. And he pops up and starts beating on Piper. And the doctor stands in the corner. No one's smarting him up either. Eventually, they're brawling outside. Brett yanks Sasso over the railings, beats him up for a while.
Zero reaction from the crowd.
I didn't know who he was.
Nobody had any idea
He's
who
still a
this
fan.
fat guy was. Well, the problem was there was also a fight in the crowd, so
Yes. Everybody
they
was
were distracted.
So the ref gets bumped.
Can I explain this finish?
Yes. You
Brett,
want to.
There's a ref bump, okay? Brett goes for a gimmick out of his trunks. He KOs Piper. Sasso gets up after being beaten up. Him and Bret Hart have a tug of war
That happened.
with the referee,
Yes.
who's dead.
Right.
Sasso, for some reason, is grabbing his legs. Brett is grabbing his arms, and they're trying to pull him in half.
Sure.
Why? I don't know, but in the middle of it, Sasso's very fat,
Well, you see,
so he wins. Brett tumbles backwards, and Piper schoolboys him, and the ref wakes up and counts.
You got it backwards.
What?
Brett won the tug of war.
Yes.
Sasso let go.
I see.
So as Brett was falling backwards, he yanks the referee in a perfect position to count the pin.
I see.
And the ref comes to, he sees somebody's shoulders down and he counts 3.
Okay.
The reason they were playing tug of war is Brett was bringing the ref over to count the pin. Sasso was holding him back so he couldn't count the pin.
It was much better than it sounds recapping it. I thought it was pretty good.
And the best thing about it, Piper took exactly 4 bumps.
He's a smart man.
He's
Yes.
a very smart man. I've been studying that match.
Tori tells you, the viewer, excuse me, got all choked up talking about Tori Wilson.
Well,
Tori tells you, the viewer, to sit down. She'll be right back. And she and her miniskirt go into the bathroom.
She never came back.
You never saw her.
God damn it. All that.
that's not the way they usually end, is it?
I was hoping for the, get the extra attitude on Raw sometimes. I would get Nitro After Dark or something.
Saxophone playing in the background.
The Outsiders versus Ric Flair and Steve McMichael. So, first of all,
They got the heat on Mongo.
Yeah, the guy that can't sell is the guy we're going to beat up for 10 minutes here.
But
But you know what? After that Vincent versus Cat match,
Dude, this is nothing wrong with this at all.
Mongo selling was merely below average.
I don't think I complained about anything in this entire match.
On any other show, it would have been unimaginable.
I described it merely as clunky.
Yes.
The Wolfpack took so goddamn long to get to the ring, their song ended. Just want to throw that out there. So again, they're doing this match. Flair gets a hot tag. Mongo can't even do a hot tag. They never made contact. The announcers didn't think it was a hot tag. The fans didn't pop for the hot tag.
So bad.
Flair's just in the ring chopping dudes. They go backstage.
Whoa. Flair makes a comeback. He puts a figure 4 leg lock on Scott Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Nash is literally, he's taking a nap outside the ring. I don't even know what the fuck he's doing.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. Nash, after Flair's running out in the hall, Nash goes to get in the ring by stepping over the top rope.
Yep.
So Flair kicks the middle rope, which sends the top rope into Nash's balls.
Yep.
That's what happened.
That's what happened.
Well, that's bullshit.
It is.
Okay. So Nash is outside cradling his nuts. Flair has his finish on Scott Hall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is when they cut backstage.
It is.
During this pivotal moment in the match. And do you want to know what they cut backstage for? Hulk Hogan is walking through the hall with a bucket.
There's some guy. I have no idea who it was. There's a guy laid out on the floor. Hogan reaches into the bathroom and gets a bucket, presumably from Bischoff, and Hogan goes for a long stroll down the hallway.
Now we didn't.
As he's doing this, hold on.
Okay.
As he's walking with a goddamn bucket, okay?
A mop bucket.
The announcers, I guess, are supposed to pretend they can't see what's happening backstage.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a brief pause and they're about to tell us what's happening, but then they realize they can't. So there's another pause, and then they're like, Hall's in the figure 4. Hogan
Right.
walks.
They come back to Hogan walking. To ensure the announcers didn't spoil anything, they mute the announcers, they mute the crowd noise, so all you hear is Hogan's footsteps.
Mm-hmm.
For that long.
Should be a Foley artist. That's good.
I'm quite talented. Hogan comes down the aisle with a bucket. He goes to throw the bucket in Flair's eyes. I think Mongo pushed Flair out of the way.
If he's coming out with the bucket, why do we need to see him walking for 10 minutes with a bucket?
So I can do my Foley joke.
Okay.
It was a great setup by Hulk Hogan 19 years ago.
What we missed, what we forgot to talk about, is that when Larry was in the bathroom, he demanded that Bischoff bleach the floor. And that's when Bischoff poured the bleach into the bucket.
I see.
So it's all Larry's fault.
Absolutely.
Wow.
I guess.
Did that storyline need that much explanation?
No.
It could have been Hulk Hogan coming out with a bucket of bleach.
May I explain the finish?
I hope Mongo
what
is
happened, I
white next
forget.
week, though.
Hogan comes out with the bucket.
He will be, don't worry.
He tosses the bleach or whatever into Mongo's eyes, and Flair goes after him. Hogan runs into the wrestling ring.
Yes.
Not a disqualification.
No.
That was number one.
Nor was pouring bleach into Mongo's eyes.
Nope. Hall and Nash double team Flair. Not a disqualification.
Correct.
Disco Inferno hits the ring. He attacks Ric Flair.
That's number 2.
Not a disqualification. Flair makes a comeback. Goldberg comes down, spears Disco. Not a disqualification.
That's number 3.
Bigelow runs in, hits Goldberg. Neither guy is in the match.
That's number 4.
That's a disqualification.
Right. It's
Yes.
a 4-man rule. Everybody knows it, Brian.
That's what happened.
Okay, this show fell off a cliff at the end. It was still better
This
than
is a
Raw.
horrible show.
Yes.
It was very bad. It was still better than Raw.
Okay. Well, there's only one thing left to do then.
Brian.
Oh! Pardon me. Here we go.
The finishes on this show were clean pin, one horrible pinfall finish in a tag team match, clean pin that somehow involved a manager, and I'm still not quite sure what happened, pin after a ref bump, a foreign object, and Will Sasso, and then DQ when one guy who was not in the match attacked another guy who was also not in the match.
Bullshit. It's the Bryan, Vinny, and Craig show here. Why is everything so quiet? I got a new computer.
I see.
Yeah, and I had to transfer over some music, and apparently our usual Tuesday night song, I transferred the wrong one or something. It's all fucked up. Who cares?
I was not aware we had a
It's-
usual song.
You know, you may as well leave this the biggest train wreck it can be. It's still going to be better than the Nitro show that we watched.
I think that's why we're in such a bad mood.
This is such a fucking terrible show. It's so horrible. And you know, sometimes when we do this show, I say, how did Raw win? Right? Because it's so bad.
Yeah.
Well, today, it's very obvious why they won.
Right.
Raw was a great show, and the Nitro show was horrible.
It was a billion times better than Nitro.
It was a million,
Yes.
billion times better. Don't scoff, Craig.
I'm not scoffing.
Did you
at
watch it
nothing.
first or second?
I watched Raw first. I
Okay, well,
always
that's
do.
why.
Yeah.
If you'd have watched it second, your mind would have been blown
I'm
at the
sure.
quality of the show.
I can buy that.
Well, my mind was blown at the quality of the Nitro show because the quality was so low.
There was no quality. Actually, there were two good matches because Chris Benoit and Dean
Right.
Malenko wrestled twice.
I don't even think those were
And you
that
know, let
great.
me get some shit off my chest here. Juventud Guerrera, okay, he sucks. All right,
Enough.
okay. When he first debuted and he had a bunch of horrible matches, we came on the show and talked about the horrible matches that Juventud had. I had to listen to these fuckers go,
Yes.
he was one of the great workers of the 90s. He was one of the best guys in the world. According to who? If it's according to Dave, God bless him, he's wrong. Hoovy was in a 6-man, okay? He was the 5th worst worker in the match. Am I wrong?
No.
He was the 5th worst guy in that match. And the only guy
best
worse
guy.
was Blitzkrieg.
Yes, he's been exposed week 2.
5th
Well, the best guy.
worst guy? How would that work?
You were the fifth.
If
best
you
guy.
ranked him from 1 to 6, he was 5.
Yeah.
Let Brian do math. It's fine.
Blitzkrieg was 6. That's all you need to know. Okay, 4 guys were better than him.
Yes.
So I'm skeptical he's one of the best in the world.
Yeah.
If 4 random luchadors were all better workers than Hoovy, could he possibly have fucked anything else up in that match? I got a lot to talk about. Let's get going. And what is with the sound today? What's going on?
Only you can tell.
Okay, let's go.
Well, WCW Monday Nitro number 179, February 15th, 1999. I kind of feel like we can just sum up Raw by saying, look, Rocket's champion again, and Big Show is there now. That's all we need to say about that. Let's just devote the rest of this 90
Paul
minutes.
White.
Let's devote the rest of this 90 minutes to this amazing episode of Nitro.
They hadn't come up with a brilliant name for Paul White yet.
Now,
So he was just Paul White.
well, apparently on the pay-per-view, based on the clips they showed, he was just, he's huge.
Yeah.
Well, he is huge.
and they gave him a shirt that said "No gimmicks needed."
I did see that.
Yeah.
Which is kind of true.
Well, it's true.
If it's true
but
for anyone, it's going to be for the 7-foot guy.
That's fair, but
Yeah.
giving him some kind of a name would have been nice.
It's Paul White.
You know what I mean?
We'll get to this.
Yeah.
So Nitro opened.
Like Big Show. When you think
That's
about
fair.
it, that's one of the stupidest names in the history of wrestling.
It's not good.
His name is Big Show. First name Big, last name Show.
Exactly.
That's what they came up with.
Yeah. After many tries.
Yeah.
It took him a while to get there.
Big Show.
Well, Nitro opened with a disclaimer. Parts of the show were lost due to technical difficulties
That was actually the best thing on the show.
Absolutely.
because it meant the show was shorter.
Yeah.
I
Hour
guarantee-
and 56 minutes.
Whatever they lost was bad.
They lost 25 minutes of this show.
Shucks.
Really?
Yep. And one of the things they lost, I wrote it down here. Meng and Barbarian versus Horace and Bryan Adams. That apparently went forever.
You don't say.
So
that was
thank-
the theme of matches on the show.
Thank God we missed that.
So they joined the announcers mid-intro. They're talking about how Kimberly last week, after she jumped out of a moving car, Had suffered a concussion and facial lacerations.
I wrote all of this down.
All right.
They cut to the announcers, and Tony Schiavone says in this voice, "We have some good news to report. Kimberly suffered facial lacerations, a mild concussion, no severe neck damage.
Yeah.
However, she is convalescing, but we don't know where." This does not sound like good news.
No.
He was so cheerful when he said, "Good news, facial lacerations and a mild concussion."
Yes.
Man.
If he would have phrased it, she didn't die, but I'm happy to report that only, you know what I mean?
Or if he would have said, like, there was concern she broke her neck, but turns out she just got cut on the face a little bit and a mild concussion. No,
but Brian is
the
right.
good news was severe facial lacerations.
Right.
He seemed
and a
very
mild
happy
concussion.
to hear about her concussion and facial lacerations.
Yeah.
That's much better than her being okay.
And I love that she's convalescing, but we don't know where.
They're afraid.
She got in a serious car accident, if you can call it that. She was assaulted and thrown out of a moving car.
Yeah.
Or so they claim.
She's missing.
Well, Paige knows where she is.
A secret location.
They're afraid if they tell Tony, Tony will tell the nation will
see.
tell Scott Steiner,
Yeah.
and he'll continue on his quest to fuck her.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So the announcers are yapping. The Nitro girls are dancing. Suddenly they cut backstage where Arn Anderson is attacking Disco Inferno and then being handcuffed and taken away. Are there like 14 incidents a week on the show where one wrestler attacks another and is not handcuffed or taken away?
Well, this was outside the building. Yeah.
I see.
And Disco even said it was like public property or something, and he wanted the guy arrested. Here's my question. Are they building to a match?
Oh, who the hell knows?
They've done a better job building up Disco and Arn than half the stuff
Than
in this
Hogan and Flair,
pay-per-view.
yeah.
And Arn is retired.
Yeah.
So what's going on here?
Cuts to a camera in the trunk of a limousine, which was used for exactly one shot. It was Eric Bischoff in his chauffeur's uniform looking into the camera, saying something like, he's mumbling about Flair, whatever.
Vinny,
Yeah.
if you're concerned about a camera in the trunk,
Oh, there's more.
they hired a fucking helicopter.
We're going to be here all night, I understand.
Yes.
Well, apparently 2 helicopters.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Regardless, Flair and his buddies arrive. They harass Bischoff. He has to be the chauffeur. It was very, very heavily edited, so I can only imagine how bad the bad takes were. And they get in the limo and they drive away. And clips of Roddy Piper beating Bret Hart for the U.S. title last week.
Yep.
We had Jerry Flynn versus Saturn.
Now, before that, they kept replaying the Steiner Kimberly Nitro Girls bump where, like, Scott grabbed her and she yanked away and tripped into the horrible schoolgirl. You know how many times they've replayed that? And it's horrible. It's so bad. And they're insistent to just play it over and over again. So, yes, we got Saturn and Jerry Flynn.
So,
How long did this go? Who timed it?
I only timed one match in the show. It was not this one. Everything on the show felt like it went forever. So they're doing this match. The announcers are going over the rest of the show, including the tag team tournament to come later on. And Tony is reading off the matches. And Tenay says, no, that's wrong. You got this guy here, that guy there.
This was so stupid.
And he says, oh, my bad, there's a typo in my format. I'm sorry, everyone. And like 3 minutes go by, and they get word that, no, Tony's format is correct. Nobody told Tenay what the matches are. And there's an injury replacement or some such bullshit. Then they had to correct their correction. What a fucking clown show this is.
Well, since you got all that, Vinny, my question to you is, what's going on in this tournament? Why did Benoit Malenko wrestle 2 times on one show? What kind of tournament is this?
Because WCW is so completely incompetent that they cannot book... I mean, I didn't have faith in them to book a single elimination tournament correctly. When they tried to do a double elimination tournament, I knew disaster would unfurl. And here it is, disaster.
But why did they wrestle 2 times on one show?
Because there was...
I'm not complaining. I just need to know what kind of tournament this is.
Because there were so many... They are doing the finals of the pay-per-view.
Okay.
And there were so many matches left, they couldn't do one match on Nitro and one match on Thunder and get there.
But couldn't you just like have 2 different teams have to do the 2 matches on Nitro? Why did they have to wrestle twice?
Because they never put them on TV, but they had brackets. And to fill out the brackets, they had to do 2 matches on the show.
And it's not like they couldn't, this is professional wrestling, couldn't make something up and say that on a house show
Yeah.
earlier in the week.
Well, for God's sake, there's an injury replacement. You can't just say this team is out due to injury.
Exactly.
There's 100 things they could have done smarter and better than this, but they're WCW and they suck. Expect no better. Now,
That's a good match.
there was some fun stuff in this match. It went too long. It was pointless and rambling, but there were some cool moves.
I don't even think it was that pointless and rambling. It was actually a pretty good match. The fans are super into it. And the announcers actually, because it was the first match on the show, there really wasn't a lot to talk about. Because they can't see the Eric Bischoff stuff.
Right.
That's what we got to remember.
Yes.
Right. They can't see any of this. But anything that happens around the building... No, here... Fuck. If there's a backstage segment, they can't see it. But if a car arrives at the building, they can see that.
Sure.
But if the car is away from the building, they can't see it.
Right.
What?
I don't know.
Anyway, they had nothing to talk about here, so they spent the entire time talking about the match. It was like a good wrestling match on a wrestling show with the announcers calling the action. This was the best thing on the show.
So, the match goes on for a long time, and then Scott Dickinson jumps in the apron. This distracts the referee. Chris Jericho runs out with I guess it was a pipe, some giant thing.
Big piece of metal.
He attempts to come off the top rope with it. Saturn cuts him off, but he turns around. Flynn hits a spin kick and makes a cover, and the ref counts 3 with this giant piece of metal in the ring, and I know he knew it was there, because when he raised Flynn's arm, he almost tripped over it.
But you know what's funny? To be fair, it was never used.
I guess that's true.
It wasn't.
But how many times have you complained about someone being in the ring?
It's stupid,
Yeah.
but I'm pointing out it was funny, because for once in our lives, the weapon in the ring actually wasn't even used.
Flynn hit a legal wrestling maneuver and won.
Yes.
That is true.
Now,
After a distraction by 2 men and an attempted use of a foreign object.
the Scott Dickinson thing, I mean, it does make sense in the storyline that they're telling, but this storyline sucks. What's this fucking guy doing on the apron in street clothes? I'm so sick of this storyline.
Not to mention, are we going to get Saturn versus Scott Dickinson?
Maybe.
I hope not. No part of me wants that.
Hey, the Bret Hart-Will Sasso match was like the second best match on the show, so
true.
anything's possible.
So Flair and his pals are mumbling in the limo.
Who are these guys?
I fucking don't know.
Two random, weird, bad actors.
I think they're like WCW executives of some kind.
So, no, I can't understand what any of them are saying. They're just mumbling to themselves.
Well, one of them was very excited we were getting Will Sasso versus Bret Hart tonight. One of them was very happy that Flair was keeping Eric in check. And then Flair gets a call from the building about Arn and Disco in a brawl, and then they start shaking their heads in disappointment.
Yes.
It's out of control back at the building.
So Flair says he'll be at the building in a half hour.
A half hour?
That's what he said.
You're the president.
The show's already been going
You got
for
one
20
show
minutes.
a week you got to really get to, and you're 45 minutes late.
He tells Jim to get Arn out of jail.
Jim. JJ.
Sure.
Oh, Dylan.
Yeah.
Oh, Jim.
Jim Morrison. That's his real name.
Frankly, that would make more sense.
Yeah.
I would have thought of Jim Morrison before Jim Dillon.
Well, that's the JJ.
This scene in the limo, this was a 3-camera shoot.
Yeah, inside a limousine.
It was ridiculous.
Only 3?
There may have been more. There are more cuts on this than any Raw match.
Oh, and then, as he's ranting, the car starts to go over a bumpy road.
Right.
And the execs are like, have you ever gone this way before, Rick? And Eric says, I took a shortcut. We'll be there in 15 minutes.
Had a hair versus mask video package. Then it's back to the limo. Flair is upset Disco was even on the show. Why they pay for his plane ticket. And they're just talking on the bumpy road, and Eric says the detour. And I'll get there, and he tells Rick, we'll get to the building in 20 minutes. Then he raises the little divider between the driver and the riffraff. I guess the execs. And he's the riffraff. Anyway, he raises the divider. I'm not in limos a lot. He raises the divider, and he makes a secret phone call. Says, I'll be there in 15 minutes. Juventud Guerrera and Blitz Craig and Psychosis versus Super Calo and El Dandy and Hector Garza.
Dude.
So, again, in the middle of this match, Shivani says, I have just learned, ladies and gentlemen, that earlier this afternoon, Lex Luger severely beat up Rey Mysterio Jr. Back to action. He just learned.
Yeah.
They just now thought it was relevant to tell the lead announcer the one star beat up another backstage.
Well, I
the
know,
show.
luchadors. Rey Mysterio. Tie-in. I don't know. All I know is during this match, the fans chanted boring.
This is the match I timed.
Oh, please. How long?
15 plus minutes plus a commercial break.
Oh,
So close to 20.
God.
And they were fucking stuff up left and right.
Hoovy and Dandy absolutely could not get on the same page.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
It was weird because for a long, bad match, there was heat. It just kind of came and went.
Yeah.
They get excited, and then they get bored, and they sit back down. They get excited again, and they get bored and sit back down. It just went forever.
Like at the beginning, they did Lucha, and the fans chanted boring.
Yep.
And then the heels did a 3-on-1 beatdown on one of the baby faces. They cheered.
Yes.
Then the baby faces did a 3-on-1 beatdown, and they cheered.
Yes.
Then they went back to Lucha, and they were just dead quiet.
So it goes to commercial, and it's either, for the first half of this match, it was basically cool dives or fucked up moves, but it was not boring. They go to commercial, and they come back, and there's a head scissors going on. They just lie there.
Head scissors. Oh, like on the mat?
Yeah.
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 What I noticed about this match was it's a 6-man, and so they got the heat on Hoovy, and then they went to commercial or whatever, and there was a comeback, and then they got the heat on Hoovy again.
What? See, by this point, I had already tuned out. I was aware there was stuff going on, and going back, I didn't realize at the time, but going back over my notes here, you were right. Hoovy fucked up a lot of shit.
Oh, dude, one thing after another. He fucked up Air Hoovy.
Now
That's his move.
It's named after him.
And you know what's best about that? When he fucked up a move with Dandy, there's 2 guys. So, like, you know, maybe somebody was on the wrong page. Air Hoovy is him.
Is all him. Yeah.
There's no one else involved.
No.
You run, you jump.
Yeah.
Well, he fucked it up.
So,
Well,
now,
that's completely different from Blitzkrieg, who all his high flying looked really great. It was everything in between that he screwed up.
what happened
Yeah.
last week, too?
He did make a horrible comeback.
He may have been worse this week, but...
He was much worse this week.
Yes, much.
Okay. So, the worst fuck up, though, I don't think belonged to either Juventud or Blitzkrieg. It was Super Colo. He goes up top. Blitzkrieg is sitting on the top rope. And Super Colo climbs up there for a top rope Rana. So he's standing on the top rope. Next thing I know, he just falls outside on his head to the floor. Just a gravity storm struck. He just slipped and fell. He popped back.
Well, it's Super Colo, so that might have been the plan.
That's also
I've ever
true.
watched his matches.
Maybe even trying to kill himself again.
Yes.
He popped right up. It's funny. He falls from the top rope to the floor, pops up, climbs all the way back up to the top rope to miss a top rope Rana. So he just flips over, lands on his belly, and Blitzkrieg hits what I described as a twisty, flippy thing for the finish.
It was a Phoenix splash.
Aha. Yeah, this went forever. And then we were back to POV porn.
Dude, we've been in that hotel with her for a week.
You, the viewer, have spent a week in a solo hotel room with Tori Wilson.
Man, oh man.
This guy's going to need an IV.
At least. So she needed more towels and more whipped cream, and she told you to hurry.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's what you said.
Well, it ain't Steiner then. He don't eat that.
So,
A towel?
suddenly, the television viewer, are aboard a helicopter.
Yeah.
And we can hear it, and we can see it. There is a second helicopter.
That is the best part.
Yeah.
Like, this was pre-taped. You know what I mean? Like, they could have, you know.
Clearly. They could have edited
I mean,
it out.
the idea is they're showing from above what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do we have to be in the helicopter? Do we have to hear the thing going around? Like, it's just this incessant buzzing throughout this entire segment. We're hearing the helicopter. Why?
They paid for it. They want to make sure you knew it had been paid for.
Make sure we knew it wasn't a blimp.
I don't know. Were there drones in 1999? I don't think so.
No.
Not like this. So, all right. So we're in one helicopter. We see a second helicopter with a spotlight. Dusty, wait.
Why is there a helicopter with a spotlight?
Well, because they were filming outside at night. They needed a light from somewhere. I don't know. I understand the helicopter with a spotlight because they went to go film this empty field and said, holy shit, it's dark. Get a spotlight out here right away. I don't know why they needed a second helicopter with a camera on it. Now, what this is all showing is the limo is driving down a dirt road followed by a phalanx of other vehicles. And the NWO, it's clear...
Phallus?
Phalanx. It's the actual word.
Okay.
The NWO in masks jumps out. They tell Flair buddies to beat it. It's very clearly the NWO.
Where'd they go?
Who cares?
Ran off into the field?
Maybe they were on the helicopter.
That's the least of our problems, by the way.
Yeah. So Hogan's mustache is showing through his ski mask.
Yeah.
It's just
So
a classic
ridiculous.
moment. So yeah, Eric parks the limo. Eric also ran away, by the way. He parked the limo and ran, even though his buddies were coming to join him.
Yeah. Fled.
So we watch from a helicopter as a masked Kevin Nash menaces Flair with a baseball bat, and the other trucks drive in circles around them.
Yeah.
I'm not making this up.
Yeah.
This aired on a wrestling show.
Yep.
Eventually, they swarmed him. There's like 8 guys putting the boots to him, and it's all so important and so newsworthy and so critical, they go to commercial in the middle of this gang assault in the middle of a field somewhere.
You're not doing justice to this. This was so bad. They had like 9 million cameras. It was filmed the day before. It's heavily edited. They've edited not one good camera angle.
No.
Like, every shot they have looks so phony. It's just a terrible brawl in the middle of the night with 2 fucking helicopters flying over and Flair falling in the grass.
I guess.
Yeah,
He may have been on his hands and knees on his back. I'm not sure.
So they show this absolutely fucking terrible. This had to have been the worst thing that we've seen in the entire time we've been reviewing these shows. Fucking gang beating of Ric Flair in the woods. They go back to the announcers. They can't see any of
They
this.
have
No,
no idea.
And they're like, "Hey, back for a tag team tournament match."
And no one tells them. No one from the truck is
No.
like, guys.
Now I have 2 questions. First off, if you're going to beat somebody unmercifully in a field, why would you hire a camera crew?
Oh,
And then masks.
no,
So
we'll
they
get
can't
to
tell who
that.
it is.
Right.
We'll get
okay.
to that.
And
Fear
then,
not.
second off, what was going on in the arena while this beating was taking place?
That's a great question.
They were just chilling out.
They weren't watching this.
No,
Was there a match in the ring?
probably just sitting there.
Oh, fun.
Have you ever been to a Raw taping? There's a
I
lot of
have.
that.
Not like this, though.
No.
One final note before we move on. As we talked about, they had like 6 different cameras here.
At least.
And I made fun of you earlier, Brian, for being obsessed with sound quality, but every camera had different sound settings. So one was like all you could hear was the helicopter rotor. One was too muffled. You could hear guys talking, but you couldn't make any voices. One was too loud. You could hear the voices. It was hurting your ears. Just every time they cut cameras, they cut sound quality as well.
You couldn't lay down one track with ambient noise and then just like edit everything on top of it.
So this was super expensive. It was very amateurish produced. It was stupid. Was there anything good about this?
Nothing.
Okay. So they go to commercial in the middle of the beating. We come back with a disclaimer saying match was joined in progress due to technical difficulties. It is Fit Finlay and Dave Taylor versus Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko in a, as Tony Schiavone said with Glee earlier, the losers bracket. You've never seen a man so happy to bring you a bunch of losers.
We had a loser match on Raw.
We have Dean Malenko, Chris Benoit, and Fit Finlay, and even to a lesser degree David Taylor, all in a match together, and we get boring chants.
I thought it was boring.
What did these people want to see? Well, I mean, it wasn't that exciting, but like, I couldn't call it boring.
They may also have put in a bad mood by, as Craig noted, sitting in silence for 10 minutes in an empty arena.
Well, there was that. So they should have been excited for wrestling.
You know how our worlds collide with today than 19 years ago? On Raw yesterday, there was a loser match on Raw. The losers got a second chance.
Yeah.
So
Ridiculous.
they hit Dean with 800 moves in a row, and then the Horsemen cut Finlay off, hit him with 500 moves in a row, and finally they tapped out Taylor with the cloverleaf headbutt combo. Anything to add?
No.
All right.
Kidding me?
They replayed the Kimberly angle from last week, and the announcers are like, here you see David Crockett calling for help. And I was like, David Crockett? Put him on Nitro. Is he there every week? You have David Crockett around, and I have to listen to Zabisco and them? Anyway. So they go to break again. They come back. Bobby Heenan has now joined the announce desk in a plain black sweater. Now, I understand you travel a lot, bags get lost, stuff happens. They couldn't have thrown him a Nitro jacket or sweatshirt or something. He's just out there looking like a fan. Right?
Craig's got an eye on his shirt. You got a plain blue shirt.
I'm not on... Okay.
Yeah, we are! That's my point.
I don't care.
We're not.
Well, clearly he didn't either,
Vinny,
nor should he have.
I don't know about you, but are you making millions of dollars?
Bobby wasn't.
More than me.
I can confirm Bobby Heenan was making more for Nitro than I am making for the Bryan and Vinny show.
Well, that's true, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
But you have more pride in your work than he did on this show.
Oh, Brian.
I have less
Have
pride.
you listened to his commentary? He has given up.
I have less pride and less alcohol in this show.
Bullshit. He gave up when Goldberg got beaten.
That's probably true.
But this was... So, they're interviewing the Nitro girls.
The more this goes on, by the way, I am starting to see your point.
Yes.
Heenan did not care.
So, they're like... The Nitro girls have something to say about Kimberly. and they're all morose and can't wait till she comes back. They go to fucking Whisper. Yeah. Shawn Michaels' wife.
Yeah. When she was a brunette.
She is weeping.
Yeah.
We love you, Kimberly.
Yeah.
We can't wait till you're back. Crying!
Yeah.
How did she pull this out? So they're crying that Kimberly is badly injured, or as Tony noted, just a minor concussion and serious facial lacerations. And they finish their little speech, tears and everything like that, and Bobby then says, "They gonna dance?"
That was awesome.
He did say that. Now,
it was perfect.
Yeah.
It was so awesome. Because he knew what bullshit this was.
well, it was.
And he made it entertaining.
See, I actually thought their performance, the Nitro Girls performance, was tremendous.
Yeah.
I thought this is the best thing on the show. A Nitro Girls promo.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but Whisper, in maybe the only speaking role she ever had in her entire wrestling career, was better than, I think, every single girl in WWE today.
Sure.
She was great.
Yes.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. How did she cry over this?
I don't know. We had clips of the Will Sasso thing from last week. Maybe she knew this was coming up.
All right, here's the story in Will Sasso. So they did the deal with Mad TV.
Right.
All right? And apparently the deal was Brett's going to do the thing on Mad TV, and then Will Sasso is going to get a wrestling match on Nitro. And the match was going to be Will Sasso and Eric Bischoff against Bret Hart and Bischoff against Will Sasso and Roddy Piper.
That makes
Tag
more
match.
sense.
Okay. Bret and Bischoff versus Sasso and Piper. So that was supposed to be last week on the show. Mm-hmm. But they decided, sounds terrible. Let's do Bret and Roddy Piper. Will Sasso will get involved, cost Bret Hart the match.
Okay.
That's what they did. So then, Mad TV was furious. You said we'd have a fucking match. This was not a match. So they basically demanded they get their match. And so WCW made Bret Hart Will Sasso.
Okay.
Now, having seen this match, there's no way that Bischoff and Bret Hart versus Sasso and Piper would have been better than this match. This was the right call.
Fair enough.
Right?
Yeah.
It was much better than I was expecting. So let's just break it down from the beginning. Bret comes out, and then Will Sasso comes out, accompanied by Deborah Wilson.
Yes.
Another Mad TV star, who comes out. She's got like a single strap top.
Yes.
And she's dancing like crazy, and how her other boob didn't bounce out, I have no idea.
I have no idea.
She must have been unemployed because there was no visual means of support.
Aha. So all I could think was, Bret's from the old school. There's got to be a part of him that wants to protect the business and just beat the holy hell out of this guy.
Of course.
And then the bell rang, and he beat the holy hell out of the guy.
And to his credit, Will Sasso was clearly a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
Sure.
He took great bumps.
Absolutely.
He sold better than like half of NXT. Uh-huh. He just took a fucking beating all over the place. Bret did not take one thing from Will Sasso.
No.
Not one thing. He didn't get slapped.
Nope.
He didn't take anything from this guy.
He didn't even like miss a clothesline.
Nope.
Everything in this match was Bret succeeding on offense, and then in the end he won.
Yep.
He stopped in the middle to sit down on a chair in the ring and drink some water. I credit both guys for this. They didn't pretend this was a fair fight.
No.
This was a fucking fat comedian having a match with a multi-time world champion. He should get his ass kicked from bell to bell, and he did.
When Will Sasso took bumps, they were like the hardest bumps you've ever seen.
He went out, yeah, they don't take bumps like this.
He did not go down easy. It was just splat every time.
Bret
He
punched
was
him on the
500
floor.
pounds.
Yeah, Bret punched
Can't
him on the
go down
floor,
easy.
and he went down hard. That hurt. So Bret goes to use a chair, but Deborah Wilson is there to take the chair away.
Right.
So the ref takes Bret away, and then Deborah Wilson turns on Will Sasso because everything has to be a swerve. And she's whacking him with a chair. Again, I have no idea how her boob stayed in. And then Bret immediately threw Will Sasso in and won with a sharpshooter.
Yeah.
There was no possible way this could have been any better.
And you know what? Everybody was making fun of her chair shots, but it was really only the last one that was bad. The first two weren't bad.
She had two-
She waffled that guy.
Yeah. He said, I'm going to feed you my 500-pound back. She said, I will take that.
This was way better than the Hoovy match.
It was.
Yes. No,
Right?
you're right.
No, in fact,
It's better than most of the matches.
it was
on
better
the
than most
show.
of the matches on the show.
It was
Yeah.
the second best match on this show. Okay, third.
The NWO arrived at the building.
Okay. So, their vehicle arrives. Now Tony can see the vehicle.
Right.
But he doesn't know what else is going on.
Why the
So
ski
they
masks?
come out and they're wearing masks. They're coming through the crowd. And Tony Schiavone goes, I don't know, fans. I don't know why they're coming out in masks. Fans have no idea. Everybody hits the ring, okay? They're criminals. They just gave Ric Flair a gang beating in a field and left him for dead while masked.
Now, it is Florida. I think it's still illegal there.
They get in the ring, and what's the first thing they do? They take their fucking masks off.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody except the smartest guy in wrestling, Hulk Hogan. He leaves his mask on. Now, of course, he starts cutting a promo. He's cutting a Hulk Hogan promo. And then he pretty much admits, I'm Hulk Hogan. And then it's like, fuck it. So he takes his mask off. They're all unmasked. Starts cutting this promo about the Flair match at Super Brawl. And
He sends everyone to the back.
yep.
And he says, I can't wait till Super Brawl. I'm going to give Ric Flair a match tonight. If he
Sure.
can answer my 10 count, he'll get a world championship match right here. The fans are all excited. The announcers are all excited. And Hogan starts to count, and he gets to 8. And, of course, he knows that Ric Flair is dead in the field somewhere. So, much to his surprise, somebody comes out. It's not Ric Flair, but it is Roddy Piper. And the first thing Roddy Piper says is, I saw what you did to Flair.
How?
We found the one guy on Nitro who actually watches Nitro.
But what was funny was he did say, I saw what you did to Flair. But then I think he realized that he wasn't supposed to know what he did to Flair, because then he changed his story and goes, Flair's busy.
He did say that later, too.
So if you know what happened to him, shouldn't you send help? Right?
Should.
Did
It'd be the decent thing to do.
he also mention he called Hulk Hogan Baldy? Yeah.
Did you also mention that Hogan accused Ric Flair of covering up his gray in the back?
Yes. Old men making fun of each other for being old is funny.
The man whose hair has been running away from his face for 10 years is making fun of a little gray.
Well, he brought that up. Maybe that's why Piper went ahead and called him Baldy.
Maybe so.
So, anyway, Piper did say Flair is busy, by which I assume he meant he's busy gasping for breath somewhere.
Busy.
He's fighting for his life in a field of dirt.
That is busy.
That's very busy. He has more important things to do.
Sure.
I am still an active commissioner. I book myself in a world championship match against you right now.
What a dick. I mean, think about this, actually. I didn't even think about this till just now. He knows that they almost killed Flair and left him for dead.
Yes.
Flair's supposed to get a title match on Sunday.
Aha.
So instead of calling for help, this fucking guy swooped in
Yes.
and took his title match.
That's
Yes.
what happened.
He's a heel.
I didn't even think about that till just now.
Did we mention what a terrible television show this is?
It's horrible.
It's just the worst.
Now,
then
granted, their match was okay.
It was the best you could get from two
Literally.
beautiful guys.
I've seen a lot of these guys' matches. Age in a cage, okay? As far as like a Roddy Piper, Ric Flair, or Hulk Hogan match, you could not have had a better one at this time.
In 1999.
In 1999. This was literally the absolute best possible match they could have had together.
Yes.
It could not have been better.
No.
What could have
sucked.
been better is when Roddy decided he was going to powerbomb, or he was going to pick up Hulk Hogan for a pile driver, but Hulk Hogan did not want to take said pile driver,
Yes.
so
Don't
he
blame
slumped down to his knees, and Roddy rode down to the ground with his knees.
He very gently. It was like I thought it was a pedigree, but regardless,
Sure.
Piper's standing up and he's got Hogan's head between his legs, and then Piper slowly kneels to the ground so as to protect his opponent, and then once they're down there, he starts humping the back of Hulk Hogan's head.
This happened.
Yeah,
Let me tell you something, Vinny, okay? If I'm wrestling a guy who just got a new hip and he wants to pile drive me, I would prefer he humped the back of my head.
Oh, sure.
Than try to pile drive me with a fake hip.
no, I'm with you.
I'm
He
writing
made the
this-
right decision
I'm writing
here.
all of this down.
I'm with you on that one.
It's on tape.
So they're doing this match.
I stand by this.
It's mostly them just taking turns whipping each other with Hogan's weightlifting belt, and then Piper hooks a sleeper, and Scott Hall attacks with a taser for the DQ.
Sweet finish.
The NWO beats up Piper for like an hour.
Literally like 10 minutes. And then Hall put on Piper's kilt and did a curtsy, which was funny.
Yes.
That, by the way, was the build to Scott Hall, Roddy Piper at the pay-per-view. So Arn and Disco are doing a way better job building up their match is not going to take place than these guys here.
Oh my God, we're back in the woods.
They
Yes.
left the cameraman for dead
So-
with Ric Flair.
I didn't
bad.
describe this in great detail so you all understand how stupid this is, all right? There's a camera at ground level. It's looking at Ric Flair's prone body, and then right behind Ric Flair, a truck comes up with its headlights pointed right at the camera. Now, my thought was, in fact, they dropped the camera on the ground and forgot it there.
Oh, you were wrong.
So, this guy, and that's all he is. He's a guy, a fella, some Florida man. Florida man gets out of his truck and starts to help Ric Flair to his feet. And at this point, the cameraman stands up. So this cameraman, instead of calling for help for Ric Flair or just calling an Uber to get himself home, he just keeps on filming. I know there was no Uber in 1999. So
I'm a stickler for logic, Vinny.
he keeps on filming as Florida man throws Ric Flair into his pickup truck, his flatbed truck, as Tony later called it.
Yeah, Tony was very specific.
That's
He
not
was
a
like,
pickup truck.
Yeah, it's not a pickup, it's a flatbed.
Yeah. So Florida man and Ric Flair and the flatbed truck all drive away, and this poor cameraman is now just alone in the woods.
Yes.
I like to think that he was also down, but, he woke up when the truck showed up, so he documented this. And presumably they came back to get him because,
And no questions by the guy in the
no,
truck.
the guy in the truck didn't ask.
Hey, what's going on? What?
Okay.
Hey, cameraman, what happened to Mr. Flair here? Nothing.
If we believe that he saw this cameraman, or if we believe that this was all a TV show and it was, they don't have they're not breaking the fourth wall so you can see the cameraman. Either way, a random guy in a random truck drives down a random field, sees a random guy. It turns out to be Ric Flair, and his response is to just load him in the truck and hit the road.
maybe he thought the cameraman was the attacker.
Had to get away.
Yeah, that's why he left him there. I don't know. Who cares?
We then got a notice from Scott Steiner's lawyer.
This was great.
There was?
I think so. Just the audacity.
I was trying to keep up with what he was saying. I talk fast. I know I talk too fast. I could not keep up with
the
what this guy was
audacity
saying.
of Scott Steiner actually doing this is what humored me.
All you need to know is his lawyer said that Steiner was filing a civil suit against DDP over the attack
Yes.
last week.
Paige did attack him first.
That's true. That's why he's filing suit.
Yes.
Not his fault that she flew out of the car.
He's-
She should have buckled up.
He is claiming that he suffered permanent injuries in this attack from Diamond Dallas Page and is suing for, what is it? I forget his exact words. It was like upwards of $1 million. Something like that.
Said $1 million.
Well, I guess that was it then. And he says Page, by the way, is also facing felony charges in a 15-year sentence.
Really?
You can do that? You can sue a guy to send him to jail?
He attacked him. Two wrestlers got in a fight in a wrestling arena, and he's facing 15 years.
Well, if Arn can get arrested, maybe Page can too. Had a Lex Luger Elizabeth video package recapping Lex's match against Conan. Then a U.S. title video package, which was funny because the champion was just out there. And then the other tag team losers bracket match. Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko versus Mike Enos and Scotty Riggs.
How do you have two matches in the losers bracket?
It's double elimination.
Who cares?
They booked
Just sickened.
they scheduled it very badly, Brian.
Yes.
This match went forever.
So Mike Enos and Scotty Riggs, one half of the Beverly Brothers, one half of the American Males. And they come out here. They're both wearing just plain black gear, plain black hair. The two most generic human beings you've ever seen. And they go in this match. Nobody cared because already seen Malenko and Benoit wrestle. And in the middle of this boring match, they go to commercial. But first, instead of going to the commercial break directly, we go back to Florida Man, who now he's at a gas station.
Checking the engine.
Is that? I guess.
Yeah, he was
the
low.
hood's up.
He was looking under the hood.
It's low on oil.
He's spraying water randomly.
He was over his
truck
radiator
overheated?
was overheating.
I guess. I'm
Flair's
not a car
car's
guy.
very heavy.
So this,
Hot in Florida.
it is hot in Florida, even in February.
Sure.
So he stops watering the engine, lowers the hood. He gets back in his truck. Now the camera, there's my voice getting angry about this. The cameraman pans around to the side of the truck. So we're now looking through the passenger window. And Flair is groggy now. He's demanding, take me to the building. Take me to the fairgrounds.
Take me to the fucking fairground.
Take me to the goddamn fair.
Jesus.
I want an elephant ear. So, the Florida Man doesn't
Are you gonna
say
make
anything.
it?
I don't know. Florida man gets in the truck, and they show the building behind him, which just says Neon Country in giant letters. And that right there.
Neon Cowboy.
Was it Cowboy?
Yeah.
Either way. That was the point where I just I sat up and screamed, what am I watching? What is this? What is going on? It's been an hour now.
You're watching Nitro. Did you not watch this when it first happened?
It hit me all at once. Like,
dude,
I watched this kid and think, well, that was stupid and shitty, and I move on with my life. This is like the outrageous horribleness of this TV program. It backed up, and then just there it was. Just how terrible this TV program was hit me all at once. Ric Flair is beaten up in a truck by is being driven around by some random guy to the fairgrounds so he can get his revenge, and only I know this. No one else on the show does. Except maybe Piper, except he forgot.
And how did this cameraman get to the Neon Cowboy?
I don't know.
I told you they went back and got him.
No, they did not.
We didn't see it, but they did it. Obviously. That's the least of our problems here.
So I exploded in outrage about how terrible this was. They go to commercial and they come back. I forgot there was a match going on.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's still going on. Started an hour ago.
We did go for an hour more, and Benoit finally tapped out Riggs with a crossface. Let it be known that on February 15th of 1999, Chris Benoit was in 2 lengthy matches, and neither was worth watching.
Well, let's be fair. If you want a good professional wrestling tag team match, this was it. It just was so out of place on this show. How could you possibly care?
I don't know.
Like, the work was fine. Benoit's drenched in sweat afterwards. He's worked 2 times, worked his ass off both times.
And again, this is so nitpicky, but all of a sudden, Scotty Riggs' eye completely healed.
Yes. Wait,
No eye patch.
Again, the least of our problems.
Exactly.
We cut to Florida man driving a truck for 4 seconds.
He's on his way to the building. The fair.
The cameraman got out of the truck, ran ahead to record.
He must have been like sitting on the fender.
Let's jump to this main event here.
Sorry.
What's the main event, you asked?
No, we're not done yet.
Oh, God. Tori Wilson, who cares?
Tori Wilson told you she was having fun. She knew you had to go talk to people.
Okay.
But maybe you could have more fun later.
So listen, let's just cut to the chase. We're going to be here all night. They flew in Michael Buffer.
They did.
Okay?
Yes.
First off, I'm sure it wasn't cheap. Probably has to go first class. They paid this guy probably $15,000. Okay?
He also, by the way, makes more than I do for the Bryan Alvarez show.
They didn't even have a main event.
No.
They flew him in. They paid him. They put him on TV. They put him in the ring. He began his ring introductions. He asked us if we were ready.
I was.
He told us it was time to rumble.
I was excited.
And that was all he did because there was no main event match.
And then he didn't even get to finish the announcement because Hall took the mic away from him.
The only good thing about this is I'm not the biggest Michael Buffer fan, but he starts doing Let's Get Ready to Rumble. And at about Get and Let's Get Ready,
Sure.
they hit the Wolfpack music. And he scrunches up his face in confusion and looks to the back, but he does not stop his catchphrase. Mm-hmm. And he gets through the entire thing like a professional.
Well, he gets paid per syllable.
And then out comes Hogan and he tells him to hit the bricks. That was his entire role on this show.
Money well spent.
I want to know what the main event was supposed to be. Was that the Barbarian and Meng match? No. Against Horace and Bryan Adams?
Let's hope not.
Anyway.
So Hogan repeats his offer of giving Flair a title shot tonight if Flair can make it to the ring by a count of 20.
Oh.
They start to
He
count.
thinks he's in Japan.
They start to count. The flatbed truck arrives. Flair has recovered to the point where he can walk, kinda, for a while.
He uses an axe handle for a crutch.
There's going to be a crutch and a weapon. He still can barely walk. The NWO is just howling with laughter as he's trying to get to the ring. Where did Florida man go?
Who cares? Let's talk about
This is part of the
Shivani.
story. Where this guy came from out of nowhere.
He dropped
Flair
him off.
He was the Uber driver.
So Shivani has none of the announcers know what's going on.
No.
They just see a truck show up and Ric Flair stumbles out of it. And Tony Schiavone, just like he's calling the action, Flair just took a nosedive out of that truck.
And then Bobby Heenan followed it up with, has he been drinking?
No, he goes, is he smashed?
Is he smashed?
Yes.
Tony goes, Flair can barely stand, but he is coming to this pavilion here at the fair. Flair stumbles his ass to the ring forever. Now, when he finally gets to the ring, the Horsemen come out to try and save him. Where were they when it took him 5 minutes to stumble his ass to the ring? Stumbles to the ring.
Celebrating their huge win over the Beverly Males.
Tony finally goes, some sort of severe beating or something.
Look at his
has
face.
happened here tonight.
Look at his face.
Some sort of severe beating or something has happened here tonight.
In his defense, no one told him.
No one told him.
Sure
I'm not making fun of Tony. I'm making fun of how stupid this is.
In real life, no one told him what happened to Flair.
Like, as a viewer, what are we supposed to be thinking? Why are the announcers so stupid?
Where's my remote?
What's going on here? Fucking guy gets to the ring and gets beat up. That's the end of the show. This was so bad.
This is one of the worst. This is one of the worst television show episodes I've ever seen. Forget wrestling. Forget Nitro.
And I just want to remind everybody that the night before this aired, Vince McMahon and Stone Cold Steve Austin had a one-on-one match inside a steel cage.
They did.
Okay? 6 days after this fucking show, this Ric Flair, fresh out of a turnip truck, faced Hulk
Flat
Hogan
man.
on pay-per-view, and WCW beat WWF in the buy rate war.
Huh.
More people wanted to see this fucking match than Vince McMahon and Steve Austin. Now, with that said, this was the end. This was the end. Because everything goes off a cliff. I mean, it's been going off a cliff for a while, but like this was their last great. This was their last great buy rate, and it all began to tumble from here.
WCW Monday Nitro number 180, February 22nd, 1999. So, show opens with picks from Super Brawl.
It was the night before.
It was the night before. The Lady in Red, as Tony Schiavone called her,
yes,
came out and slapped Ric Flair. Then he said, "We have seen her so often on this program." Liar.
It's 1 week.
Oh, it's been 3 weeks.
He never saw her.
You're right.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. Okay, so they did a 180 this week. Now the announcers can see everything.
Are you familiar with the term retconning?
So maybe the idea was, well, you know, Tony went home and he watched Nitro last couple of weeks.
Nobody else
so
did.
Now he knows what's going on. Right? He DVR'd it.
I guess.
Or he VCR'd it, as we called it back then. He taped it.
Yeah. So anyway,
that's
Tori
the least
Wilson.
of our problems.
She came out, she slapped Ric Flair, and then David Flair came out in a mask, and it's David Flair, and he tased his dad, and Hogan won. So we didn't mention this, because we were so angry about how terrible Nitro was last week. But the very last shot was you, after spending a week in a hotel with Tori Wilson, Scott Hall walks up to you, hands you a taser, and says, "Don't screw this up." So you were David Flair this entire time.
I must have totally missed that.
It was like 4 seconds, but it happened at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
I have noticed that my Apple TV will sometimes cut the show off a little bit early, so I think I missed Scott Hall.
Yeah.
But anyway, I got to give him credit. A lot of times there will be these recaps of what happened at the pay-per-view, and you watch them, and you're like, I have no fucking idea what happened at the pay-per-view. These are the most useless clips of all time.
Yes.
I watch all these clips. I know exactly what happened at the pay-per-view.
That's
They actually
true.
did a very good job recapping the pay-per-view for once.
For once, because you usually have more questions.
Yeah, I didn't
Yes.
have any questions here.
We had clips of Ricky Rackman hosting a Nitro party.
This guy.
There's one good thing about this.
The Nitro Girls.
Actually, there's two good things about this end. The Nitro Girls, and this is the build to Club Lavella.
That's true.
Oh, yeah.
5 weeks from now.
And they don't...
5 weeks, baby.
correct me
They're
if
back
I'm
in the
wrong,
pool.
They don't usually do a build. They just show up there one day.
Yeah.
So maybe the build will make it even better.
They're on their way. Steiner's in a bus on the way to the
we'll get to that.
Club Lavella.
Oh,
yeah.
we'll get to that. So the first thing Ricky Rackman says is, "Soon you're going to be sick of seeing my face."
Too late.
Mission achieved. The Nitro Girls come out. They dance for the college kids for a while, and they're all cramped together, and everyone has this big fake smile. They're all woo, and all I could think was, this is an old person's vision of what a young person's party is actually like. So with a commercial, they came.
Wait, it was a worked party?
Yes.
Oh, come on.
Those are real college boys.
Get out of here.
That's for sure.
So we had clips of the Nitro Girls doing wacky things at UC Berkeley, tug of war, obstacle courses, random screaming, lots of close-ups of tits and ass.
Anyway, moving on. Let's just cut to the chase.
All right.
We had clips from Starrcade. We had Nitro Party clips. We had the Nitro Girls dancing. We had Super Brawl clips. And then, after 10 fucking minutes, the very first match Because it's WCW, Mike Enos versus Jerry Flynn.
I laughed so hard.
Dude,
You like this show.
this was a good match. But
match
that's
was
beside the
fine.
point. That's beside the point. The point is, who the fuck was going to watch this match? I had to. It was my job. I liked it.
I wrote here, just wave the white flag and cancel the show. By the way, in that barrage of clips we had from Starrcade, they casually mentioned, hey, Rey Mysterio lost his mask.
Oh, yeah.
See him later.
Yeah.
So yes, Jerry Flynn and Mike Enos come out to wage war on remote controls around the country.
But it was good.
Did we also mention that Scott Dickinson is now off suspension, just randomly refereeing a match?
Well, he was on a 30-day
I
suspension,
guess so.
and it's up.
So these guys worked their asses off. They clobbered each other. It was a lot of fun. Fans were chanting boring because it's Mike Enos and Jerry Flynn.
That was the flaw in the plan.
Sure.
But I mean,
Great
they had
technical
a
error.
good wrestling match.
This segment went as good as it possibly could have gone for a Mike Enos Jerry Flynn Nitro opener.
But you know what, Vinny? This show did so much better in the ratings than the week before.
Good.
You want to know why?
It was better.
Because we make fun of Mike Enos versus Jerry Lynn, and the fans were chanting boring, but these WCW fans, they just wanted to see guys wrestling. So you gave it to them, and it worked.
Keep that thought in mind.
Yes.
So, yeah, Flynn won with a cross armbar out of nowhere. As I wrote here, a good match that accomplished nothing.
Well, yes, that is accurate.
Tori and David Flair were on a couch talking about how he had done what he had to do.
David was the worst.
Imagine being a young man sitting next to Tori Wilson and having zero spark with her.
He was the worst.
Yeah.
They're claiming he's 19, he's 21, which is like even more astonishing.
Wow.
He's got to have his head on her bosom.
Wouldn't you?
That you're missing the point, dude.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He cannot believably put his head on Tori Wilson's bosom. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is impossible.
It looked fake. I get it.
It was fake.
Well,
Yeah.
there's.
How
things there
can
that
you
were fake,
not
but-
do this?
I don't know. It's a mystery to me.
Are you kidding me?
David,
He could do nothing.
David, we need you to act like Tori Wilson's really hot.
God bless this guy. He never really wanted. Actually, I don't know if he wanted to be a wrestler, but he ended up working for the Forest Service or something. But
Maybe he took it a little too far, and the director was like, "All right, bring it back a little bit, buddy."
it couldn't work. He couldn't talk.
No.
He could not believably put his head on Tori Wilson's bosom. I mean, what is there? What else is there?
There's not a lot to work with here.
Could
No.
you stand in the woods? I mean, that's the other option here in life, apparently. And I guess he could do that. Jesus Christ. I could not even believe this.
The mountains were calling him. So
No. Well, they were, and he did not answer the call.
Mean Gene interviewed Booker T. Booker promised to win a lot of matches in
Can you
1990.
imagine if Gene had to put his head on Tori Wilson's bosom?
Yes.
It's not hard.
There would be lawsuits. Booker T promised to win a lot of matches in 1999 with the Harlem Hangover. Said his knee was 100%. He's going to beat Bret Hart tonight and become the top contender to Scott Hall's U.S. title.
And it would be on like neck bone.
And it would, in fact, be on like neckbone.
Yep.
We had Ricky Rockman interviewing a guy who won a trip to the Panama City show in a few weeks. There's a series of skits throughout the show. Now, you recall, among the whole... Was it just last week we had this?
Yes.
It was just last week.
Hulk Hogan pulled every single guy in the black and white aside and put them in charge.
Except Scott Norton, because he
Scott
was
Norton
in Japan.
on a Japanese tour.
Yeah.
So Norton's back. He arrives back in the U.S. The first face he sees is Vincent, and surprisingly, he did not jump on a plane back to Japan. Vincent tells him, hey, just so you know, Hollywood Hogan put me in charge. And Norton says, he's skeptical, but he just says, so you're the man? Vincent says, I'm the man. Norton says, okay, and he shakes his hand.
I love Scott Norton. He is so believable. And the only good thing about all these skits was Scott Norton.
Yeah.
As every one of these geeks comes up to him and says, Hollywood put me in charge. And he's not even subtle about it. Like, he's got his sunglasses on, and he, like, pulls him down and looks over the top. Hollywood put you in charge? They're like, yeah. And he goes, all right, brother.
You're the man.
You're the man.
Everyone.
Offers every single time. And you knew that he knew they were all full of shit.
yeah,
I loved it.
And a recap of the Scott Steiner DDP storyline. And then Van Hammer versus Bam Bam Bigelow.
All right, Craig.
yeah.
I will admit.
Okay, good.
I will admit.
This match sucked.
This segment was terrible. Mm-hmm. In fact, the last words I wrote about this were, I almost quit my job after this match. Okay, so it was really, really fucking bad.
This is
okay?
boring.
But it was just one thing on the show. But, do you remember when Bam Bam Bigelow debuted? And he was so hot.
Mm-hmm.
And he had that feud with Goldberg for a while. And they couldn't really pull the trigger because they had other plans. They put this fucking guy in the ring with Van Hammer, okay? This should have been a 2-second squash match.
Absolutely.
Okay? There were, I mean, this is minimum, 4 chin locks in this match. And I know this because every time there was a chin lock, I had to go back and rewrite that sentence. Because, like, after the second chin lock, I was like, there's no way there's more than this. There were 2 chin locks in this match. Had to fucking go back. There were 3. Had to go back. There were 4.
What a rough day on the job.
They kept doing fucking chin locks. Bam Bam Bigelow and Van Hammer. How long did this match go? 12 minutes?
Long enough to put me to sleep twice.
Here's what happened.
Hold on.
Okay.
So they have this goddamn terrible match, okay? Absolutely killing me. Fucking Van Hammer goes for the Yakuza kick in the corner. Sami Zayn's finish.
Mm-hmm.
Bam Bam Bigelow moves out of the way. Van Hammer kicks the corner. His foot is resting up there on the top turnbuckle.
Yes.
And he just turns and looks at the crowd and goes, "Bummer!" And then he turns around and eats Bam Bam's finish.
Mm-hmm. Bummer.
You've accurately described what happened here on this episode of Monday Nitro. You've succeeded in your task.
After I sat through that fucking match, and that dude yelled "bummer" to lead to the finish, I was filled with such fury. What the fuck am I doing with my life? That guy didn't give 2 shits about this fucking match, and he still had to go 15 minutes and waste 15 minutes of my life that I'm not going to get back someday. I'm going to be on my deathbed. I could add 15 more minutes, but this fucking match drained 15 minutes out of my life, and that fucker didn't even care. Bummer! So anyway, this sucked.
I don't disagree with anything you've said.
I hope not.
But I will say this. I would watch this match again before watching last week's show.
I wouldn't.
Yeah. I thought this match was much better than last week's Nitro.
This was so bad.
It was horrendous. What would happen? Bateman would hold him down in a chinlock for a minute. He'd say, all right, we'll try one thing. And it'd be like a back elbow. And Hammer would be so wacky and awkward and clumsy and out of control. Bateman would say, fuck this. And put him back in the chinlock. It was a terrible pro wrestling match.
Yeah, this wasn't Bam Bam's fault.
No. Buff Bagwell and Scott Steiner go to Panama City. I was so excited.
I want to party with these guys.
Probably a bad idea.
Yeah, you would not be the same man the next morning. You'd have a lot of confessing to do, I'd imagine. So, first thing they do is they see their own pictures on the side of a bus. And they say, they're talking about how great we look, how many hotties get on that bus. And then they go to the gym. Scott says, time to get big. And Buff pats him on the shoulder. And what he actually said was, time to get lean. But I rewound this because I thought he said something else, and he should have said what I thought he said, which was, time to get laid. That'd have been much funnier. Because the first thing he does is he begins to pay attention to a woman doing squats. Offers a spot for her. Things are going great. So they work out a lot, talking about how great they look, and then the woman who is doing squats gives him a card, says, I'd love to see you guys later. So they're excited. They're going to have a one workout during the day and one workout at night, Scott says. So later that night, they go to the address she gave them. It goes to a gay bar.
I did like that there's a girl doing squats. She appears to be stuck. Bagwell goes to help. Later she comes by, she gives him a card. Scott gets the card, he's so excited. He says...
She's going to get stuck again.
He says, we're going to double up today.
Yes.
And Buff Bagwell looks at him and goes, what do you mean?
Yeah.
So Scott explained. We'd work out once during the day and once during the night. Then Buff understood. This fucking idiot.
Which is why it's so great. So they go to this gay bar. There's 2 drag queens at the bar who say, hi, boys. They turn to leave. There's a giant drag queen who blocks their path and asks where they're going. I shouldn't have laughed as hard as I did at what happened next. But Scott turns to Buff and says calmly and rationally, I'm going to kill him.
Yeah.
And he takes one step forward. Buff has to tackle him to prevent a murder. Everyone survived. They go outside. They find their Hummer is gone. The bouncer, I guess, gave them an address to go to about where to find the Hummer.
Yeah, where was it?
I don't know, but the next thing we see, Goldberg is doing a photo shoot. Scotty sticks his head in the door, runs him down a bit. Then he closes the door and goes away. Goldberg keeps posing, and that's the end. Where did this Hummer go?
I don't know.
Are we
Maybe,
to believe?
maybe it got towed.
Are we to believe that Goldberg was at the gay bar, stole the Hummer, and then went to a photo
No,
shoot?
this was a totally different thing. I don't know why. I don't know why it was a part of them going to spring break, but
Okay.
Oh, WCW. We had pics of Scott Hall winning the U.S. title from Roddy Piper amidst mass shenanigans.
yeah, you're stunned, I'm sure.
Yep. Bret Hart versus Booker T.
This was a great match.
By the end, it was.
This was the best match on either show.
It was.
Yes.
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. You want to learn how to work? Watch this match.
Sure.
Like over and over again 50 times. And you'll be better. No matter how shitty you are going in, you'll be at least a little better watching this match over and over again.
So in the early going, they cut to the production truck where Disco Inferno was harassing one of the tech guys. He says, "We're going to hijack your satellite feed later." Just like that. And they go back to the announcers who are like, well, go ahead. That's illegal. You'll go to jail.
Well, Disco, this is when I figured out they changed the format of the show, because Disco's explaining they want to hijack it. The guy says, no, I can't do this. Disco says, we'll kick your ass. We'll pay you more, blah, blah, blah. So they go back and Tony says, and I quote, "We eavesdropped on some illegal dealings." And the other two announcers blow it off.
Okay.
Tony is aghast. What is wrong with you guys? Like, this is illegal. Why does anyone care about this? That's when I figured out he's actually seeing what we're seeing. That's a step up from last week.
Finally, but what were the other two?
Yeah, they just didn't care. So, this match here was very, very good. You know, sometimes I'll get mad because guys will do a... Who is that? Is that you?
There's gurgling going on.
Who's gurgling?
It's not me.
Must be me.
Okay, stop gurgling, please.
Okay.
So, you know,
Thanks
sometimes...
for calling attention to it.
Well, it's like the third time. Even Vinny noticed.
There's a microphone. Okay.
There is a microphone right there.
It would have been weirder if we had not found this, dude,
Yeah.
honestly.
People be worried that it was them. Anyway,
What's going on with my radio?
I'll just get to the point here. Brett does not
Good
give a
idea.
shit about anything else going on in WCW. He doesn't give a shit about any of the other matches on the show. He's just gonna do his 18-minute match exactly how he wants to do it, like they're back in Calgary.
Yeah.
More power to the guy.
Amen.
This was great.
Amen. There was a point where Brett hooked the sharpshooter, and Booker fought for the ropes and got them, and the ref starts to count. And they've been doing a lot of shit with Bret Hart lately. And I was certain this top contenders match was going to end to be a DQ, and
That's
Bret
what I
refused
thought.
to let go. He let go. It was a swerve. And
He has till 5.
He has till 5.
Young Bryan Danielson may have watched this match.
Yes.
Got an idea.
So Brett tried a sunset flip, and Booker sat down and cradled him and got the win. Tremendous TV match.
There was a fella in the first or second row. He's wearing a Pens jersey. And he held up a sign that said, "Watch Raw." A little while later in the match, you can see this man up in the bleacher section, the aisleway, and now there's an officer holding on to him with one arm and a security guard in the other arm, and they're taking his sign away. And then finally, at the end of the
Fascism.
match, he sits down, and you can see him audibly upset and angry and complaining to all his friends back in the front row. That's what I got out of this match.
That's what you got out of Booker T and Bret Hart?
That?
Well, that's what I noticed.
No wonder he didn't like this show. He's watching the wrong stuff.
And pics of Ray Jr. without his mask on. Disco Inferno versus Kaz Hayashi. So apparently on Thunder, I guess Glacier's poor.
Sure.
He sold all his gear. So Kaz bought Glacier's entrance gear on Thunder. We're out here on Nitro.
Not just his gear. He sold his
Snow machine.
Well,
snow
that's
machine.
later,
and-
yeah,
I know,
yeah.
but he still got rid of it all.
Yes. So Tony is back now. He left during the prior match. He had to go work on the lighting for the Flair skit.
He's doing the lighting.
Apparently.
I think he was just, they were just, getting the cameras right for him.
They didn't have stand-ins.
I guess
I'm
not.
going to say, stand here, pretend you're Tony.
I guess they didn't have anybody that looked like Tony.
I try and be a stand-in for Craig sometimes when they're setting this shit up and it doesn't work.
I could see that. You
So-
can't replace me.
Disco sang the national anthem before the match. He was doing a much better job than I expected before they got the mic off.
They're better than Fergie, that's for sure.
That's true. They're making fun of Tony for watching the Nitro Girls swimsuit video earlier in the day, and Tony says, well, I need to know what they're telling me to pitch to. And Tenay points out, nobody tells us to pitch to anything. And Tenay shut up because he had a point. I was stunned at how long this match went. Mm-hmm. It was good, but I was not expecting Disco, Inferno, and Cass I actually get 8 or 9 minutes, whatever it was. It was even back and forth match. Cass made a comeback, but he missed a senton, and Disco followed with a chartbuster for the win.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the point of this was. I have no idea, but it was good. They had a good wrestling match here on this wrestling show.
Mm-hmm. Bryan Adams met with Norton.
This one.
Says, hey, just so you know, Hulkster put me in charge of the black and white. And I'll probably end up in charge of the Wolfpack too someday.
Delusions of grandeur.
This is like the one thing that Bryan Adams could do. He could like say funny things. Like he was really funny when he was doing this interview.
Yeah. Sure.
And Norton listened, stroked his chin in thought, and said, you're the man. Shook his hand. We're back at Cal Berkeley. Dudes were playing Limbo. Scott Steiner and Buff Bagwell came out for a promo.
Saying college guys don't do that at parties, Vinny.
I'm surprised Whisper got underneath the pole, to be honest with you.
So
I'm not.
Scott Steiner and Buff Bagwell came out for a promo. There's a lovely young lady in the stands, just groping Steiner. So they brought her out of the crowd and into the ring, and then never did anything with her.
I'm pretty sure it was a plant, Vinny.
You think?
She had a lot of.
I would assume so.
She knew what she was up to.
I guess. So Steiner claimed that by beating Page the night before, he had won the right to date Kimberly for 30 days.
Which Tony noted was a lie.
Yes.
You know.
As Page is on his back, screaming in pain, Kimberly will be on her back, screaming my name. That was a great line.
This whole thing is so fucked up because DDP is supposed to be the babyface, but Steiner's doing this promo. The place is just going nuts for this guy.
Well, there is that.
He's talking about... He's basically threatening to rape Kimberly for 30 days, and they're on their feet. They're just screaming. They're going nuts. And I gotta say, like, it's weird because as a heel character, this was the best Scott Steiner there's ever been.
He was awesome.
It was his best promo ever, but it's totally backfiring. It's totally turning DDP into a geek.
Well, there's that. But yes, this is the first time where I looked at Scott Steiner and said, yes, this is a legit main event top guy.
Yeah, he figured it out.
Yes. Remember how terrible he was when he first
Oh
turned heel?
my god, it wasn't even that long. It was like a year ago. Remember he had that, he was with Eric Bischoff at like some...
It was Hogan on a movie set.
Yeah, some movie set, and he's all
bad.
nervous,
Yes.
and they're calling him Hollywood Scott Steiner, and he's bumbling through a promo like
Yeah.
he's David Flair. He's turned the corner.
He has figured it out. Picks of Barry Windham and Kurt Hennig beating Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko in the tournament
He
finals.
challenged Goldberg, by the way.
He did challenge Goldberg, that's true. Hennig and Windham beat Benoit and Malenko in the tournament finals to win the tag team championship. Chris Jericho and Ralphus came out for a promo. So Ralphus is wearing a dress. Jericho's wearing a dashiki, I guess knowing 19 years later Black Panther would come out. Amazing move on his part.
This wasn't so much a dress as it was a gown.
That's true. Ralphus had a gown on. So Jericho talks about Saturn.
Thank you, Craig.
Someone may be confused, Brian.
You know, you're right.
It's important when they are...
It is very important to know that he was wearing a gown and not a dress.
Someone somewhere...
That would be weird.
Someone somewhere is doing notes on our review of this
Absolutely.
old show.
This was not a
Sure.
sundress. This was something somebody would wear to prom.
Thank you.
Yes. Not an overweight, middle-aged man with no front teeth.
So Jarrett says Saturn's a pervert, calls him gay, calls him clinger. Then he demands Saturn stop wearing a dress. Wasn't
Yes.
he the one
Yes.
who insisted that this
But Vinny, this makes sense.
Okay.
Because he wanted him to wear the dress to humiliate him.
Right.
Okay.
But Saturn loved it This made Jericho mad.
His plan backfired.
Yes.
I see.
He's not happy with this guy being happy wearing a dress. He wants him to be sad.
This is the same argument we had a while back where Pillman was in a dress, but then the Headbangers had a match next.
Yeah, one wanted to be in a dress and
Right.
one didn't.
Chris Jericho versus Hugh Morris.
Or a gown.
I think I'd rather have a gown.
Well, now I can't unsee that.
What the fuck difference would it make, dude?
So Scott Dickinson, they took him off suspension. Not only did he just go back to refereeing, he refereed Saturn's match at the pay-per-view. This clown show company. So, then, and by the way, they're talking about this, Dickinson apparently called the match clean down the line, but Saturn attacked him and laid him out anyway. WCW sucked. It's important to note.
Yep. You're not wrong about that,
Talking about
Vinny.
Jericho's silly haircut, no one mentions Morris has a horizontal stripe shaved in the back of his head.
I couldn't figure out what that was.
I think... I thought he fell asleep, like they ribbed him and just shaved his head and didn't tell him. Just shaved a stripe in his head. So they're doing this match. It's a pretty decent match, and then like 200 things happen at the end. I
All right.
refuse to write them all down.
Saturn comes down, and he rips Ralphus's gown.
Down. Because Saturn was wearing a skirt.
Which, by the way, Ralph is under the gown, is wearing like this giant pair of boxers. But somehow, it's more embarrassing for him to be in his boxers than to be in a gown.
Understood.
So he's all embarrassed.
Yeah?
The referee
his
goes
belly?
after Ralphus. Why? I don't know. He's like, put the gown back on, dude. You're in your underwear here.
Sure.
He's distracted. Saturn gets in the ring. He decks Jimmy Hart, who had a chair, gives Jericho a DVD. Hugh Morris, who has a giant knee brace on and a bad knee, does a moonsault anyway, gets the pin. And that's the match.
And this was good.
Yeah, it's fine.
Well, then...
I mean, I've seen bad.
Then Morris confronts Saturn. Saturn gets in the ring and dares him to fight. They start trading punches as Jericho is lying there like a corpse.
I mean, it wasn't the best thing on the show, but...
Thank you.
I mean, I've seen much worse.
And it ended. So after the tag team tournament finals, Benoit and Malenko had attacked Wyndham and Hennig backstage.
So listen, if you didn't see the show and you didn't know what was going on, what happens is they cut to the back and Kurt Hennig covered in sweat. He's next to Barry Windham covered in sweat. They've got the belts.
And denim.
Kurt Hennig hugs Barry Windham and he says, "Thank you, Barry. You're the best tag team partner I've ever had." And suddenly these two fuckers, Benoit and Malenko, run out of the shadows and beat the shit out of them with belts.
Yes.
Like, if you don't know what's going on, you're like, who is the babyface and who's the heel? These two pricks just jumped these guys in a tender moment and hit them with belts. A bunch of shitheads.
You're not wrong.
But instead, I guess, there'd been something that happened at the pay-per-view that led to this. We didn't know that.
Kevin Nash, Lex Luger, and Elizabeth come out for a promo. So the night before, they had beaten Ray in a tag match and taken his mask.
Yes.
And Nash says, we watched the video. Scott Hall bent the rules a little bit to help us win. It was not a fair victory. So in the interest of fairness, instead of fighting, come on out, Ray, I'll give you your mask back.
Besides, it doesn't fit me.
No,
Yeah,
Liz won't wear it, he adds.
yeah, we said both, actually.
Which,
It made
I
me,
wish I'd never heard that.
I won't lie.
Right?
I won't lie. All of this made me laugh.
It made me laugh too, but that was really creepy.
Oh, you just now caught on to the... Okay.
He wanted Liz
Yeah.
to wear Ray's mask?
Well, yeah, it is
Sure.
creepier.
What's going on here?
I'm not sure. So Ray comes out. I've never seen a tattooed 10-year-old boy, but that's what he looked like.
Sure.
He says, it's not about the mask anymore. It's about getting what I want. And what I want is a piece of you.
That makes his mask thing even creepier, Vinny. Why'd you have to mention that? Go ahead.
It's my job. Talk about these things.
Why'd they have to mention it?
Oh. It's their job. I don't know. So Nash, in a moment of foreshadowing, said Ray's outfit was a ripoff of the No Limit Soldiers. But he agreed to the match. So we got Kevin Nash versus Rey Mysterio Jr. Nash bumps like crazy for all of Ray's offense.
Yes, he did.
Place is going nuts. He cuts Ray off for a little bit with a snake eyes. When he goes to the powerbomb, he gets Ray up on his shoulders, but then Ray starts punching him in the face repeatedly. So he's got Ray up on his face, and he's weebling and wobbling, and his arms are waving. It's a great visual, and he goes flat back on his bump, and Ray sits on him and hooks the leg for the pin.
I enjoyed this.
It's a very famous moment here. I mean, it's complete bullshit. Like, this was Kevin's way to let the world know, I'll lay down for this little man, Rey Mysterio.
Yeah.
This fucking pinfall here, like, the referee is counting before Nash is basically even on the ground.
Yeah.
He does the fastest count you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Nash does the quickest kick out you ever saw in your life.
Yeah.
They have, like, a 10-second celebration. And then, you'll never guess, it's to the back.
It's to the back.
They blow the entire thing off.
You're right. You're right. Bell to bell, this went as well as it possibly could have gone.
Sure.
Yeah.
After the
But
bell,
it was bullshit.
it was a lot of bullshit going on.
Yes. He did not put over Rey Mysterio Jr. He slipped on a goddamn banana peel. And then we went to Conan's music video.
Conan had a rap video.
Don't even tell me this wasn't good, Craig. Don't even tell me.
My wife was in the room.
I'm sorry they weren't playing Pearl Jam. This
it
was
has
awesome.
Nothing to do with that.
Am I wrong,
The
Vinny?
line of the song, bow, wow, wow, yippee-oh, yippee-yay. Hey, that's original.
Yeah?
You gotta be kidding me.
You ever listen to rap?
He stole it from George Clinton, Brian.
No shit, fucker.
My wife said, he stole that from Snoop Dogg. I said, no, he stole that from George Clinton.
So it's educational.
So they're
What are you so
sampling
upset
in
about?
rap, you say? I never knew that before.
Horace,
Great video.
Horace told Scott Norton that he's in charge of the black and white, and Norton said, all right.
You didn't think that was a good
You're the
video,
man.
Vinny? Come on. That was better than his first one. No?
I was neutral to the video. I did not hate it. I did not love it. It was a music video. Horace told Norton that he was in charge of the black and white. Norton said, okay, you're the man. Mean Gene brings out Wyndham and Hennig for a promo.
What the fuck was this? Okay, this sucked. You're right about this.
Yes.
I don't even know what they were talking about.
No.
They said the Horsemen were good, but we're great. We have the belts to prove it. We've got a lot of challengers lined up, so the Horsemen won't automatically get a rematch.
Whoop-de-doo.
So Norton...
I love this. Norton takes no bullshit. Every one of these fuckers came to him.
Mm-hmm.
They all claimed they were in charge. He said, all right, brother, he shook all their hands, and then he immediately went to Hulk Hogan, and he said, you know all these shitheads have been calling and saying that you put them in charge.
Yes.
What's going on?
Yes.
And Hogan says, brother, he gave these bozos their chance.
Bozos.
Now we want you to take over.
Ah, okay.
And
Yeah.
Scott Norton bought it.
Yeah.
He's another bozo.
Probably because, you know, he's a leader.
Scott.
Yeah. Like, if shit went down in the NWO and he demanded to be the leader, there ain't nothing these other shitheads
Yeah.
are going to do about it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Do you
true.
think Virgil's going to challenge him?
Funny you should mention that.
Right.
Okay. So Cat comes out. He's got Glazer's entrance, the music, the lasers, the snow. It takes a long time, of course. Then he demands the ring announcer call him the best looking man in sports. Then he says, where's my James Brown music? I don't want these lasers and lights and snow. He starts going off about how he wants to whip somebody's ass. They cut to the black and white locker room, where everyone was just being there. And Norton walks in and announces, all right, guys, time to get things straight. But before he can get any farther, Disco says, hey, Cat's calling you out. Now, I thought this was Disco
Yes.
pulling a rib.
Right.
I thought he was lying about this call out.
He was. That's the funniest part about it.
Okay.
He jumped the gun.
Yeah.
I see.
Ernest Miller wasn't calling him out.
Yet.
And Disco goes, he's calling you out. And Norton's like, I dealt with this last week, and he's going to do this thing. And then all of a sudden, Ernest Miller specifically calls out Scott Norton.
Okay.
So, you know what happened then?
Cat versus Scott Norton.
Yeah.
I'm not in charge, obviously, of WCW, and I wasn't when I was alive. But if I was and I were, I would do Cat versus Scott Norton every week.
Absolutely.
Dude, Scott Norton against any random geek every week.
So last time, of course, Scott destroyed him in a grand, marvelous fashion. Cat did not back down from this challenge. He recovered from his ass kicking and met it head on. Greeted him with a flurry of kicks as he hit the ring. He got cut off eventually, but he tried another comeback, and Norton wiped him out and grabbed him and powerbombed him and won. Great! And I bet next week Cat wants to try again.
It was great. I thought this was great.
This was a great match.
And this
A
was
great
followed by
two-match.
another great match.
This was fun.
Scott Steiner versus Goldberg. Buff grabs the mic. Goldberg's not going to show. There's not going to be any sparklers. Y'all might as well leave. Steiner starts running down the fans, but then Goldberg's music does play, and there are sparklers, and there is Bill.
Now, before this all happened, Buff claims he's not there, and Scott says, God damn it, I'm going to fight tonight. So he demands a fan come out of the crowd to fight him.
Mm-hmm.
With the exception of, like, Brock Lesnar. Who is there in WWE today where if they stood in the ring and demanded someone come out of the crowd to fight them, they would not be ridiculed? Who do we have?
I don't think anyone.
Baron Corbin standing in the ring and saying, I'll fight anybody in the crowd. Who wants to get in the ring with me? Fucking Scott Steiner saying, I'll fight anybody. And there's like grown men. They're like yelling at him, but they ain't making a move. No. Not one person in this crowd was going to get in the ring with this crazy motherfucker here. That's what we're missing in wrestling. Then Goldberg came out. That's another crazy guy.
Oh, yeah.
We had two big, jacked up, crazy looking tough guys fighting each other.
I don't know how many times I've said
It was the
it's
best.
everything I want out of pro wrestling.
It was so great.
Giant, scary men clobbering each other and throwing each other around.
Yes.
They locked up, and Steiner pushed Goldberg into the corner and hit him with the hardest forearms I have ever seen. Right in the side of the head.
This is the magic of wrestling. It doesn't matter if it's not real. We all know it's fake.
Sure.
But the fans want to believe that these fucking guys are real. They're having fake fights,
This wasn't fake.
but they're not just two geeks in there that like anybody can do this.
Right, right.
This is two tough guys. You would not want to jump in the ring in the middle of this fight.
Nope.
Oh, Jesus. No.
You'd die.
I'd jump in front of a bus first. So after taking super hard elbows to the head, Goldberg says, "Aight," and he grabs Scott Steiner and presses him over his head repeatedly with ease.
Ridiculous.
They go to commercial and they come back. One of Goldberg's longest matches at this point. Eventually, Buff is able to distract Goldberg to let Steiner ambush him for the heat. And Steiner punts Goldberg right in the balls in front of the ref. Nobody cares. It's still Goldberg. So Steiner goes to whip him in, and Goldberg thinks he's closer to the ropes than he is. And he leans back to hit him, but he's too far away. So his head slips under and comes back and takes the rope in the throat. Always good times. And finally, Bagwell removes a turnbuckle pad.
In the nick of time.
Goldberg actually was a Hollywood finish there. Goldberg whips Steiner into the exposed buckle. He drops Bagwell with a spear. Bagwell and Steiner tease a walkout, but here's Rick Steiner to clothesline them both. And then Goldberg and Rick Steiner stand side by side as the black and white comes out and there's a face-off. Goldberg is deemed the winner via DQ for whatever. And then I believe Stevie Ray throws Vincent into the ring, and Goldberg spears him to death, and that's the end.
Yeah. This segment was so awesome.
It was great.
And what was this amazing, violent, car wreck spectacle followed by here with just mere minutes left in the broadcast?
This was odd placement.
A Nitro Girls swimsuit video package.
What?
Well, we had the violence.
Listen,
Now here's the sex.
I love the Nitro Girls in bikinis as much as the next guy.
Sure.
What the fuck was this doing here? This was so dumb.
It was.
I thought that Goldberg and Steiner was the main event. It went off the air, and I'm like, what in the hell is left here on this show?
Yeah.
I totally forgotten Tony was going to interview Rick and David. All of a sudden, there's a Nitro Girls video package. I'm like, I got shit to do here. What is this?
You're complaining about this.
I am!
Okay.
This is better than Bam Bam Bigelow and Van Hammer.
Well, yes.
Okay. So Tony's in a room with David Flair and Tori. And it says, soon Ric Flair's going to be here to confront you. And a limo pulls up and they say Flair's inside. Then they go to Hogan and Nash watching all this on a monitor. But the monitor goes staticky. They start to slap it. The next thing you know, there's a video of Tori cuddling David and saying how hot he is. And David is wearing an NWO shirt, trying to rest his head on her bosom. Now,
Failing.
I don't know if this was the storyline or if he's just that bad an actor or what, but am I the only one who thought in this skit David appeared to be intentionally pilled up out of his mind? Like the NWO was poisoning him?
I thought that's what it looked like, but I just figured that was just him.
I thought that was just David.
It may also be just him.
Yeah. He was trying so hard not to laugh, and I can't blame him.
So Disco arrives in a Mean Gene disguise. Tries to interview him. Nash is there in his Arn Anderson costume doing the exact same jokes he did the last time he wore an Arn Anderson costume.
It's comedy.
Someone, maybe Vincent,
No, that was Stevie Ray, I think.
2 minutes went by before I figured out that the guy in the lion costume and the wig was supposed to be Mongo.
Yeah.
Oh.
He was.
He had a tail.
He looked like Booker T with dreads.
Yes, I think it was straight hair. Anyway, it was dumb. All of this sucked and sucked and sucked. Scott Hall is interviewing Piper, or imitating Piper. It's awful. And then Hogan arrives. Hulk Hogan.
He's so good.
He's got his wig. He's got his giant fake nose. And you could tell for 15 years, Hulk Hogan had been waiting to do a Ric Flair impression on camera. Sure.
Great.
And he goes into Ric Flair mode, and it's terrible, and it's wonderful.
It was so great because he is doing every single Ric Flair, like every Ric Flair catchphrase, which is funny because at the beginning he fucks it up, but then he tries to get it the second time, the kiss stealing, wheeling, dealing. He gets it, he hits it dead on. But in the middle of it, he makes sure he gets in a brother. Because he cannot help himself. He's tearing off his jacket. He's tearing off his pants. He's there in just his boxers. He's going around. He was so great. I loved it.
Nash starts playing with toys and making horsey noises.
That was not funny.
I believe Hogan handcuffed himself to Tori. And then Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, his young filly, he called her.
Hulk Hogan made fun of Ric Flair for dating women young enough to be his own daughter.
Yeah.
Irony.
This was just so good. This was 10,000 times better than the other one. I stand by that. Hogan was so good. This show was great. There were 2 bad things on the show. The rest of it was just awesome. I loved it. How did this company die? Anybody know?
My music, please.
Oh.
Now, I won't lie, this is going to be very boring. But tradition holds, we must do the finish report
Yeah, did you get our music back?
for every Nitro and Raw.
It's time for a change. You ready, Vinny?
Sure.
All right.
The finishes on this show were...
What the hell do you want out of me?
I don't have an answer.
Something better.
Clean pin.
Kiss my ass.
Clean pin. Clean pin, clean pin. Pin after a guy in a dress ran in and attacked everyone. Clean pin, clean pin. And in the main event, DQ due to something or other.
You wanted better music for that?
It's a very boring finisher report, I won't lie.